And we're on to the second to last bonus episode now, starting with Dragon Ball Z Budokai. The reason this and the next game were held off until now and put together is that they both involved a lot of grinding that I didn't record about 70% of, back when the plan was reviews. I simply thought I wouldn't need that footage taking up space. Also, anyone watching this from outside PAL regions might be wondering what the hell is it with this intro. Both Japan and the US got a full recreation of the original Chala Head Chala opening done with the in-game models, with each region's opening theme playing. PAL version just got a montage of story mode cutscenes. So, Dragon Ball. While I have done a Super Butoden video already, this game is much more well known and I expect more people will see this video first before they find that one. Any characters who were in that game I already went into detail in that video, so when I get to one of the 9 characters I've already spoken about in Super Butoden, I'll let you know and only go into detail about gameplay and costumes and forms that I haven't covered yet in this show. And since this is far more likely to be seen by people who haven't watched that video, I must warn people ahead of time that I have been a fan of Japanese Dragon Ball exclusively for the last 15 years, and will be using the Japanese names only, because that's simply how I know these characters now. I did say that I won't be a dick about the dub unless others are dicks first, and since no one watched my last video to be a dick about it, you spare it this time. But I would recommend watching the opening to that video as I go into my opinions on the franchise as a whole and why I'm not thrilled with either its current state or even its current existence. As for this game, it's the 13th Dragon Ball fighting game. The last game I did a video on was released during Dragon Ball's original Japanese run. Neither the manga or anime had even finished the story arc that the game was mostly covering. It came out in 2002, 5 years after Dragon Ball had simply finished. In 1997, GT had just ended and the franchise was done. Not even any games were coming out after Final Bout that same year. By the time this game was released, it had been long enough for the franchise fatigue to wear off in Japan. I should say though that this was not the first game to come from Japan that year. Legendary Super Warriors was released a little earlier. But Budokai was clearly the main event. I mean, in Japan there was no Budokai subtitle, this game was just called Dragon Ball Z, and the sequels would be Dragon Ball Z 2 and Dragon Ball Z 3. There was nothing else going on, so they could just name it after the show with no subtitle, as if to say Dragon Ball is back. Of course, for English speaking territories this was completely different. The show wasn't done airing in either North America or the UK when this game came out. I don't know where they were in the US, but for me, the Ocean Westward dub was airing that section of the Majin Buu arc Funimation dubbed The Fusion Saga. I got this a few months later when Dragon Ball GT was airing, dubbed by Blue Water Studios. They were airing the Planet M2 portion of the story, which was so dull that I actually stopped watching for a couple of weeks just so I could play this game instead, and then jumped back in when it was wrapping up and Baby was being introduced. This was my third Dragon Ball game, and the one that got me used to the Japanese cast a few years before I made the swap. All PAL copies of this game are Japanese cast only, with a new subtitle track that gets a little funky at times. My first game was Ultimate Battle 22, which had the Japanese cast as just grunts, as all the pre-fight cutscenes were removed from the international versions. Then came Final Bout, which in the UK was also Japanese cast only, but now had pre and post fight banter, so I could actually hear these actors talk. Then we get this game, where I get to hear them act out the actual events from the show that I'd only heard dubbed in English, mostly by Ocean Studios at that point. UB22 and Final Bout were games I basically made myself enjoy at the time, because they were the only Dragon Ball games I could get access to at that time in the UK. But they were just novelties really. This is the first game I put some serious time into, and I actually liked as a game outside of being a licensed product from a cartoon I liked. Plus, in early 2003, imagine going from this, to this a year and a half later, to this just a few weeks after that. When I first heard of this game, I wanted it so badly, and since I wound up skipping Budokai 2, not playing it until 2009, this was my Dragon Ball game for 2 years, and I bled it dry for everything. Every little bit of content I could get. But I never 100%ed it until 2012. Plus here's a fun fact, this is a game that actually killed my original plan for this to be a straight review show. I'd written scripts and made some very bad practice videos on Beavis and Butthead, Street Fighter, Metal Slug, Fatal Fury and Sword of the Million. But writing this one got too big and messy with everything that I wanted to cover but was irrelevant in a review, so I just gave up on script writing for months and just went back to recording games. But enough rambling, let's get into the game. So we have a story mode, but first I want to talk about gameplay and the starting characters. This game has a final playable roster of 23 characters, but we start with 5, and I want to split that up a bit to keep things fresh. So we'll start with the default 5 and cover the rest as they're unlocked. So, gameplay. We have 4 buttons, punch, kick, key blast and block. You can double tap forward and back to dash. Certain moves knock characters into the air, but you don't have free flight and movesets don't change. There are combo strings, but really there are only 3 sets. One for average heighted characters, one for the larger characters, and one for the smaller characters. Then we get into the skills. We have special skills which have a large key blast such as your Kamehamehas. Ultimate skills are also classed as special. Then there's the physicals, which tend to be some sort of long combo, either a long beating, a knock into the air followed by a long beating, or a knockdown followed by a ki barrage. Both kinds of moves tend to be performed by performing a combo string ending with the ki button. Each of these skills uses up between 1 and 3 bars of ki, of which the maximum is 7 bars. Ki is charged by landing hits, but you can charge it manually by holding block and double tapping back. Throws also count as physical skills but don't use ki. Skills are equipped by obtaining their capsules and equipping them. Every character does have a default set of capsules equipped though if you don't want to play custom, just not with all moves most of the time. There's also transformations that increase all damage your attacks deal. They're done by pressing punch, kick and ki at once, or just a shoulder button like most people do. Each transformation has a minimum ki amount required to transform, and from then, ki slowly drains automatically. Some characters have multiple transformations that increase the damage even more, but also speed up the ki loss. Being knocked down when under that form's ki requirement will also make you lose that form, dropping you to the next available form down, if any. One last thing to note with transformations, later forms require all forms under it to also be equipped. You can't say, just give Gohan Super Saiyan 2, he also needs the first form equipped. While I'm at it, another kind of capsule that can be equipped are support skills that give various buffs and benefits. Some of these are so strong that they'll take up more than one of your 7 capsule slots. Up to 3 of the same skill can be equipped to boost that skill's strength. It's a fine system, but there are a couple issues. It's a pain for characters to have large movesets because you can't fit them all in, especially if they have many transformations. It also means that the characters with multiple transformations just tend to be straight up better than those who can't transform. Hell, a lot of the characters don't even have ultimate attacks. Not that it matters too much here, characters mostly play similarly anyway. Also, the throws should not require using up an equip slot to use. And that's the basic gameplay covered. Now for those starting characters. We start with 5. 2 of them I haven't spoken about yet, and one is a variant of the character I've spoken about, just not this specific version. Going in select screen order, we'll start with Son Goku. I already spoke about Goku as a character, along with his Super Saiyan form, so if you want my in-depth feelings on him, I recommend checking out episode 14.1, my Super Butoden video. This is going to be a lot quicker than that. One last thing, since I didn't record myself obtaining every capsule, I'll just talk about the entire moveset at once for each character, make things less messy. Goku has the largest amount of transformations in the game, at 4, but since this game ends at the Cell arc, this means he has 3 levels of Kaioken, times 2, times 5 and times 10. This is then followed by Super Saiyan. One thing I love in this game is the portraits in the life bars changing with the transformations, the ones with no physical changes tending to show them screaming. His ultimate is Z Genki Dama, which requires being in one of the 3 Kaioken forms to pull off. He also has a second ultimate, the teleporting Kamehameha he used on Cell, but requires being in Super Saiyan. Every character has 2 costumes usable in versus modes. Goku's default is the usual orange gi, but with his Go kanji from the Freezer arc. It used to be quite a novelty getting this one in games, since it wasn't really around that long. They just tend to use the no kanji version. Nowadays it's become his main version of that gi since Battle of Gods. His alternate outfit is the brown jacket he wears on the cover of Tankobon Volume 26. This may be the only game this costume is available in, and it's definitely the only place you can see him wear this costume as a Super Saiyan. We've had casual clothes for Goku before, but it's never anything cool like this is. It's been baggy Hawaiian shirts and tracksuits. It's almost a little too cool for him, but it works. As a kid I thought this was the outfit he wears in the pre-Cell game filler episodes, even though it looks nothing like it. This does bring me to another complaint though, the fact that there are many costumes exclusive to story mode, and yet only 2 are playable in the versus modes. Playable in story fights are the orange gi with the Kame kanji, the Saiyan gi with the Kaio kanji, the Go gi with the green scouter on, a heavily damaged gi, the orange gi with no kanji. Only in cutscenes but still fully modelled are the Kame gi with a halo, a hospital gown with casts, the gown without casts, his clothes from Yardrat, his damaged battle jacket from the Room of Spirit and Time, and the gi with a halo but no kanji. That's 5 costumes only playable in story mode for no reason, and 4 more that are fully modelled and could easily have been playable. So 13 costumes total, and only 2 of them can be used freely. All of these costumes except the hospital gowns would become available in later games, so I'll save them for then, but it's still a pain. Part of the fun of having in-game transformations and alternate costumes is being able to mix and match forms to outfits they were never seen in, like the Super Saiyan and the jacket I already mentioned. It's a huge complaint I have with the Xenoverse games too, locking movesets to costumes so I can't mix and match the transformations. As you would expect being the main character, Goku is one of the biggest offenders for unusable costumes, but he's by no means the only bad one. Next up we have Son Gohan, whereas a 5-year-old from the Saiyan and Freezer arcs instead of the Cell arc version from last time. But I already spoke about Gohan as a whole in the Super Butoden video, so I don't have anything to add character-wise. This is only the second game this version of Gohan has appeared in. Before this, there was only the Dragon Ball Z arcade game from 1993. For one thing, he has no ultimate. He does have two beam specials though. He has the Kamehameha and the Masenko. He has a transformation, his unleashed potential from the Namekian Great Elder. This is one of those weird things where he can be knocked out of that state, even though that's not really how it works in the series. Also, being the smallest character in the game, some of the attacks from larger characters will just go right over him. His default costume is from his fight against Nappa, the purple gi with long hair and a headband. It's my favourite version of this look for him. When he loses the headband it looks incomplete, and I think the bowl cut in the freezer arc just ruins this outfit. But speaking of bowl cuts, his alternate costume has that with him in his battle jacket from the freezer fight. Somehow I think this outfit redeems the bowl cut. Maybe it's the added width from the shoulder pads, I don't know. It helps that these versions of the battle jacket are my favourite, full body suit and at least some shoulder pads. As a 7-year-old when I saw him in this, I thought he looked so cool and I really wanted one. This is the one I tend to play as most. It's also the first game this costume was available to use. The arcade game only had this game's default available. But while these are the only costumes Gohan uses in story mode, there's still some fully modelled ones exclusive to cutscenes. We have his Chi Pao with the Dragon Ball hat, the Chi Pao without the hat, the orange gi with the Markanji and a sword on his back, the purple gi with the bowl cut, and his long hair with no headband from the early Cell arc. So 5 costumes fully modelled that he can't use. Next we have Piccolo. He has 2 transformations, his fusion with Nail and a further fusion with God. Like Gohan, this is one of those times where being able to knock him out of his transformations is a bit dodgy, seeing as the fusions are supposed to be permanent. What, is he literally having God beaten out of him? As for skills, he has his explosive demon wave, as well as a second beam super, his Gekiretsu Kodan. His ultimate is his Makan Kosapo. It looks quite painful in this game, travelling through the opponent kinda slow. It's also purple. Many games made this attack purple, and I don't think we get the right colour until Budokai Tenkaichi 3 in 2007. He's one of few characters who actually has a second ultimate. When fused with God, he can use his Maku Hoidan, the move he used on number 17. His default costume is the normal gi you would expect. It's his default in every game. His alternate costume has him dressed up as Nail. It makes sense, since they have the same body shape and face. You could say it's strange that Nail confused with Nail, but obviously it's not actually Nail, he still has Piccolo's voice, personality and name. It'd be a while before rosters got big enough to justify a character spot being given to someone as minor as Nail, so having him as a costume through all 3 Budokai games was a neat way to acknowledge him. Piccolo also has a further 2 costumes only seen in story mode cutscenes. There's his gi totally shredded from battle, and his gi with the weights and turban on. Our 4th starting character is Tenshinhan, who wasn't in Super Butoden, so this will be my first time talking about him, so it'll be more in depth than the last 3 characters. This is only his 3rd fighting game appearance, and when you consider that Shin Butoden's characters are all recycled Ultimate Battle 22 assets, this is actually only the 2nd time he's had new fighting game assets created for him. He has 2 death moves, which are the actual names for the beam supers, the Dodonpa and his Kikoho. His ultimate is his volleyball fist. The best part about that one is that they even include the face he makes while doing it. His default costume is from his fight with Nappa, the green trousers and no shirt. He's not actually in that many games, since they tend to go with the Cell Arc green sash. It's fine, not his most interesting costume though. His alternate is from the late Majin Buu arc, which this game's story doesn't cover, nor does the roster with 1 bonus character as an exception. It's a nice costume and it's always good to see him out of the usual green for once. Sadly it's not complete, the cape is missing. I guess they didn't have the budget for cape physics, as every in-game costume that should have a cape is missing it, and any character models with capes stay exclusive to story mode cutscenes. He also has his default costume with a halo and a single cutscene. Tenshinhan is a character I like, but he does suffer the same issue that many of Goku's rivals do, in that they're at their most interesting on their introductions, and then just fade into the background, never getting that limelight again. He works really well as this arrogant, dickhead assassin in training who ends up turning away from that path and his arsehole teacher after interacting with Goku and the Muten Roshi. The guy who at the start of the day broke Yamcha's leg for fun, but by the end of that very same day is offering Goku half of his prize money because he didn't feel he won fairly. It's also a great fight, one of my favourites in the series. He shows off all sorts of techniques that the games very rarely work with. Where's my forearmed form video games? In the next arc he gets an okay showing, but does get reduced to the punching bag while we wait for Goku to show up and wipe the opponent for him. The Saiyan arc is a pretty good showing for him. He would have the best death scene were it not for Piccolo upstaging him next. It's more dignified than, I aim to get Chaozu out of this fight as quick as possible. I'll just blow him up. Of course he's out for the Freezer arc, busy being dead and all. In the Cell arc, despite Toriyama's waning interest in him, he does get quite a lot of time on screen. He isn't left off screen like Chaozu, and isn't fobbed off early on like Yamcha. He gets to stay around through most of it, only being out of action during the second half of Cell's Island adventure. And even then he gets a good scene out of it. with his Shinki Koho managing to slow down the vastly more powerful Cell and keeping it up despite being certain he's probably going to die from it. The rest of the arc he's not really doing much, and that whole "we're never gonna see each other again" thing is both out of nowhere and nowadays laughable with all the social gatherings he's always showing up to in modern Dragon Ball. Boo arc, he shows up later on just to get knocked out. I'm kinda fine with it. It's a repeat of his Shinki Koho moment with Cell, but to show how much bigger a threat Boo is, he's completely unharmed while Cell was still stunned. What I'm not fine with is what happens in the manga, which is nothing. In the anime, after Goku goes off to fuse with Vegeta, Dende heals Tenshinhan and he just flies away. In the manga, they just forget about him and leave him out cold, face half planted in the rocky ground. Granted, it wouldn't matter anyway because he'll still die when Boo destroys Earth, but still, no one gave a shit about him. Before I move on from this, I would like to bring up that one filler episode, 4th episode from the end, where there's a party at Bulma's after the Boo fight. When Dende accidentally reminds everyone that Goku didn't show up and ruins everyone's mood, it's Tenshinhan of all people who gives him this "you absolute green piece of little shit" look. In GT, I think he doesn't even speak, only cameoing in 2 episodes, being transported to planet Sufru before the Earth explodes again, then later in the last episode he's just doing what he's been doing since Cell, rejecting all the new training methods that have shown up since and just sitting under waterfalls, thinking he'll catch up to Goku that way. Then for the revival era, he and Chaozu were the only characters in the group to not appear in the 2008 Jump Super Animator special. Even Lunch showed up in that one. This was most likely done because of his actor, Hirotaka Suzuoki's death 2 years earlier. But at the same time, Tenshinhan had already been recast the previous year for Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and a few months later in Burst Limit. He could have just not spoken. Not much to say about Battle of Gods, but Resurrection F is notable for him in that he's there at all. After the cast cut down, removing Yamcha, Chaozu, Number 18, Goten and Trunks, the fact that he's there at all shows that Toriyama still has some affection for him. I just think it gets glossed over because the Muten Roshi being there is more notable. Then comes my least favourite part of Dragon Ball, the Universal Survival arc. There's his recruitment episode, which is by far the worst one, and what went on in said episode should never have even made it to a rough draft, let alone the final script. But the issues with that episode were nothing to do with Tenshinhan, it was just unfortunate for him it was in his episode, so I'll save it for a game where the Muten Roshi is playable. In the arc itself, he gets by far the worst showing. Yes, he's only the second character from Universe 7 to be eliminated and not the first, but at least Kuririn got an entire episode to himself where he gets to knock out a few people. Ten doesn't even get any focus, and his elimination just feels like an afterthought. Look, we've got to get all the Baldies out in succession, just get him off that arena, I don't care how. What do you mean you have to pick over still Frieza? Well, we can't get rid of him yet. Well, look, Number 18 has a high hairline, close enough, get rid of her next. And as explained in the opening of my Super Butoden video, I haven't consumed any of Dragon Ball Super after that arc, thanks to the announcement of the 2018 Broly film, so I don't know or care what he's been up to, if anything, after that arc. And for our final starting character before I move on to story mode, we have Kuririn. Considering how important this guy is, you may be surprised to find that by this 13th fighting game, this is only his 4th playable appearance. Also, like Tenshinhan, 2 of those games use the same assets for him, so this is his 3rd time being made for a fighting game. Like Gohan, he has his unleashed potential as a transformation. He has a single death move, the Kamehameha. His ultimate is the Kien Retsuzan, the regular Kienzan isn't in this game. This is basically what he does to Frieza in his second form, only he hits dead on this time. His default costume is his own Kamegi, the pre-Cell arc version without the weighted shirt. You'll also notice that the whites of his eyes are coloured in like the manga, instead of being the same colour as his skin like in the anime. I do prefer the games going with this version, as without the weights it stands out more from Goku's. His alternate costume makes its first playable appearance in this game. It's the green jacket he wears when he's first getting on God's spaceship to leave for Namek. This one isn't in many games, and so when it does show up, I always appreciate it and always use it as much as I can. And as usual, he has some story-only costumes. In gameplay, there's his Cell Arc Kamegi with the weighted shirt, which is only used by the AI. And exclusive to cutscenes, there's his blue Kame-sen Kulilin hat, his battle jacket from the Frieza fight, and his jacket from when he sees off Trunks while mourning Goku. Kuririn is another favourite of mine, definitely top 10. When he first appears, he's this hilarious little shit before he quickly morphs into the lovable loser he's been ever since. Throughout his first 3 arcs, he had plenty of great moments. The gag about not realising he has no nose in the Bacterian fight, his vampire bite followed by high pressure blood hair in the Red Ribbon arc, and defeating Chaozu by quizzing him on maths. If the UK hadn't gotten Z first, I can't imagine the shock his first death would have been. It's a nice quick shock in the manga, but the anime had so much tension to that scene that it still managed to surprise me when we finally got those episodes after GT was done airing here. I knew he died once before Raditz shows up, but at the time I didn't know when, so it still managed to have some surprise to it. In the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai and Saiyan arcs, he's fine. He's just overshadowed by most of the rest of the cast, mainly because they've got stuff like marriage or death, or in Goku's case both, going on. It's also where he steals Yamcha's dream of wanting to get married, a lifelong dream he never had until he was 24. He gets a lot of good stuff in the Frieza arc, basically being the de facto leader of the group due to everyone else either being dead or on a spaceship. I said this before, but it's more relevant with Kuririn. His death from Frieza actually scared me because on TV I only had Raditz up to 3rd form Frieza on repeat for months. He and Gohan were the ones marked in my head as the ones that didn't die. Yes, his first death was mentioned, but I never saw it by then, so it never really entered my mind. It was the only time where something had a stronger effect thanks to the series being aired out of order. The only time. And that brings us to the Cell arc. I did say when I covered number 18 in Super Butoden that I'd save this moment for when Kuririn was playable. Him destroying number 18's shutdown button because he'd fallen in love with her after a single teasing kiss. It's not too surprising that a lifelong single 30-year-old quickly fell for the first woman that he didn't grow up with to give him some kind of attention. I mean, before number 18 he'd only been around Bulma and Lunch since his introduction, and of course as soon as he met Chi-Chi she was already engaged to Goku. Yes, it's not the smartest thing to do, but I do not consider it his fault that Cell achieved his perfect form. Yes, it was done for a selfish purpose, but ultimately, choosing not to kill someone who hadn't exactly done much wrong yet is a kinder thing to do than to kill someone who hadn't exactly done much wrong yet. Yes, there was the plan to kill Goku, but things never reached that point, she didn't seem too interested in the idea anyway, and that goal was programmed into her against her will after she was kidnapped and operated on without consent. She beat up Vegeta and Trunks, but Vegeta instigated that fight, the artificial humans were going to leave them alone. Yes, she was involved in stealing a van, but that hardly justifies execution. It was Vegeta's fault for the same reason Majin Buu's release is his fault. If he had just gone along with the plan and not actively helped out the villain, none of the resulting bad shit would have happened. He was the one who could actually kill Cell when he had the chance, removing the need to kill number 18 entirely. But instead he actively chose to make things worse to feed his own ego. But then of course there is the question of whether Kuririn would do the same for number 17 if it was number 18 who got absorbed first. If you asked me 3 years ago when I was recording this and gathering my thoughts, I would have said that I don't know. But considering that he specifically included number 17 in his wishes at the end of the arc under the assumption that he and number 18 were a couple because he'd rather her be happy before anything else, I still think he would. As for them getting married off screen, I mean, it's Toriyama, he doesn't do romance. Gohan and Videl were the only couple he even tried a little with. Even the insanely popular Bulma and Vegeta was all off screen. But this brings us to the Buu arc, where he's in a more reduced role thanks to the failed attempt at setting up a new generation. Gohan's 7 years of aging aside, Kuririn sells the idea that there was a big time skip best, showing with the full head of hair, a wife, and a child. Those last two were a genuine shock to me. The hair had been spoiled for me by those shitty action figures with the guns that were being sold in shops by the time the Cell game was airing. That was a confusing couple of weeks. Who's Goten? What's the Gotenks, and why is Trunks so short? Never mind Super Saiyan 3 and these movie characters I'd never seen before. So while his petrification from Dabra is a blatant means to cut the cast down so there's less to keep track of, I will say that I like his on-screen death from Buu in the anime later on, when he's turned into chocolate and we get this big close-up of Buu's face as he open mouth chews him to bits. Like, that's Kuririn being chewed into mush and swallowed, and the same thing happens to his wife and 3-year-old daughter seconds later. A genuinely disturbing image. But that's all I have to say for him in the Buu arc. At this time his character in the original run was pretty much finished. Which brings me on to GT, where he simply gets a few cameos at first in the baby arc, where even as an infected slave, he's still on one of those lazily written gags where he's the beleaguered husband and father carrying the shopping bags and his family talk to him like shit. Don't care for it. But then we get the Super number 17 arc, and it's one genuinely good scene, his death at number 17's hands. I already went into this in the Super Butoden video when I spoke about number 18, so I'll just repeat quickly, but it managed to be effective despite Kuririn's absence from any important role until then. In the final episode, he gets one of the most effective lines in the entire series to me. It's when the still child-sized Goku visits him and the Muten Roshi at Kame House for the last time. He makes a comment about how Goku and the Muten Roshi look and act exactly the same as they did when he first met them 40 years earlier, while he's the only one who got old. There's just something heartbreaking about that line. So now the Super era. Nothing to say about Battle of Gods, and the main point people talk about with F is with number 18, and I already talked about that in the Super Butoden video. I suppose there's his choice to become a cop, which at the time I was fine with. After Yamcha he becomes the second person to put his skills to a useful application in a job. In today's climate he doesn't come off looking so good doing that. Also it's kind of a watered down version of the Great Saiyaman stuff. Oblivious robbers shooting at a guy with superhuman durability and being terrified when he isn't affected. It's just that the Saiyaman stuff was funnier. That just leaves the Universal Survival arc. I think he comes out of this arc looking good. Shaving his head again and going back to fighting after retiring would come across as more cheap nostalgia bait like most of the Super era, but the fact that we got that little forest two-parter and they showed him getting his passion back really helps it. Also, the recruitment episode showed him develop an actual strategy instead of boring punch hard of another guy. The power scalers hate it because my imaginary numbers, but it was good actually. Despite the build-up, I'm fine with him being the first to be eliminated. He gets an episode to himself where he shows us various strategies and eliminates a few others, better than what Tenshinhan got. He also manages to be a surprise, since he got quite a bit of build-up only to be eliminated quite early, and that's about where I leave Kuririn. With the starting characters covered, now it's time for story mode. This game covers the Saiyan, Frieza and Cell arcs. Chapters in story mode are separated and presented as if they're actual episodes, with a recap narrated by Joji Anami, who also reads out the episode title. We even get a very good kind of knockoff of the usual recap theme for DBZ's first 199 episodes. So we get to see Goku's winning blow on Piccolo from the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. 5 years later, he's visiting Bulma, Kuririn and the Muten Roshi at Kame House with Gohan. Raditz a space pod lands on Earth. He simply stares at Piccolo for a second before he picks up Goku's battle power and flies to Kame House. He tells Goku he's his brother, he's from Earth and that he's a Saiyan. It's really impressive how this game manages to compress so much of the original story into short cutscenes and still has it make perfect sense. Raditz knees Goku in the gut and takes off with Gohan. This leads to this chapter's title card, Mysterious Alien Attack. If you're at all familiar with Japanese Dragon Ball, you know just how bullshit it is that these episode titles are an actual reasonable length. Goku and Piccolo catch up to Raditz and land in front of him. Goku demands his kid back. Raditz finds that funny. Goku points out that skill and technique can trump pure strength, but power scalers, Raditz, doesn't want to hear it. He points out that the other two Saiyans out there are more powerful than him. Goku is surprised, but he still has to try. This is where I'm given the controls. For this fight he only has Kamehameha and one of his physical specials, Zanku Fist. Not even a throw. You have no business losing this fight. You could press no directions and just spam punch 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 Kamehameha and win easily. There's a funny quirk in this game in that when you kill someone in the air, their lifeless body just stays floating, doesn't drop or anything. Goku grabs Raditz by the tail to stun him and bring him to his knees. Raditz tries to talk Goku into letting him go, saying he'll leave the planet. Piccolo tells him not to believe it, but he does and gets an elbow to the face. Every fight in story gives a fixed reward first time through, in this case Goku's Zanku Fist. On a repeat playthroughs the capsule rewarded is random. Raditz stands on Goku and crushes his chest a little. His scanner picks up a big number as Gohan bursts out his pod. He gives Raditz the headbutt and wins him, giving Goku the chance to grab him from behind, telling Piccolo to fire. What follows is a minigame, rotating the control stick to keep Raditz in the blue line so Piccolo can hit him. He has to be on the line when time runs out or else Raditz will break free and you fail. It can be a little tough trying not to overcompensate and skid right off the line as soon as you're on it. Notice that they hide Piccolo's arm so you can just imagine it's still missing and they don't have to spend time making that model or get a higher age rating. He fires the Makan Kosa Po and takes out both Raditz and Goku. I love these subtitles. The first word out of Raditz's mouth after getting a clean hole blown through your chest. Jeez. On clearing this minigame, I unlock Raditz. I'll get to him after I finish this arc. The next chapter starts, showing Goku at Enma's desk after his death, then running across the Serpent Road to Kaio's planet for training. 6 months later, Vegeta and Nappa land on Earth. We skip ahead to Gohan and Kuririn being the only survivors in the fight against Nappa. Nappa goes to crush Gohan under his foot, only for him to be saved by Kintoun, who Gohan calls Muscle Cloud in the subtitles. Kintoun means somersault cloud, not muscle. Also, an omen. You can hear in the voice track that Gohan only says Kintoun, so I don't know where the subtitles were getting that from. Goku drops down and we get the chapter title, Goku's Quiet Fury. Goku finds the bodies of Piccolo, Tenshinhan and Yamcha. Now this confused the hell out of me as a kid. I'd only seen the show censored on Cartoon Network at that point, and back then, as part of the Another Dimension censoring of death, Piccolo's body faded away, and Yamcha's body was also removed on his death, implying the Saibai Man vaporised him completely. Much more family friendly, I know. Only Tenshinhan had a body remaining back in those episodes, so seeing Goku find those bodies had me thinking the game was making things up back then. Nappa also brags about Chaozu's death. Goku is so angry he calls the Saiyans meanies. Now let's not say things we can't take back. Goku has these same moves as the Raditz fight, but with the addition of Kaioken ×2. This fight goes even quicker. I take out 2 of his 3 life bars before I take a single hit. Nappa lies defeated and asks for Vegeta's help. Vegeta instead throws him into the air and kills him. Something I'd like to bring up is that since this is the first time a Japanese cast were repeating their old lines and a lot of the dialogue they're re-recording was over a decade old at the time, this means that there was none of the phoned-in performances some actors would be giving in another 10 years. You know, because they haven't had to repeat the same lines every year for a decade yet. Some lines I think were even acted better in this game than in the original episodes, such as Nappa's reaction to Vegeta killing him.
Vegeta!
Also, we don't need useless science? Is he referring to himself in the third person, or is he talking about the state of the franchise in 20 years' time? Winning this fight unlocks Nappa. No prologue this time, right into the next chapter, Super Duel. Vegeta talks about how Goku should be honoured that a super elite is fighting a lower class warrior, or Litlans as the subtitles put it. Would Vegeta say Litlans? Also, did you know Goku knows of David and Goliath? I can assure you that's not what the actress is saying. It's supposed to be his line about how even the lower class can top an elite with hard work. Vegeta laughs it off when we get the stances. Very cool seeing this properly recreated in a video game for the first time. And only the first time. I'm so tired of having to sit through this scene in nearly every future game. Goku has another physical added to his move list this fight, the continuous Kamehameha. Note that Vegeta is wearing his scouter for this fight because we never saw him destroy it, because there's no over 8000 scene, because the fucking 9000 meme didn't exist yet and wouldn't for another 4 years. Oh yeah, there was a time where we were free of it. It's very ballsy to call that move continuous Kamehameha, by the way. They aren't Kamehamehas, it's the same key volley physical that nearly everyone else has. Vegeta's more aggressive than Nappa, but still not a problem. So I hope the subtitles can help me out on this one. Now, Vegeta is calling Goku a minor warrior. Is this the offensive version of lower class or something? Or does he think 24-year-old Goku here is underage? Or does Vegeta think he is the main character of Dragon Ball? Also, Odan! Rather than Great Ape, they translated Ozaru as Big Ape. It still fits, but it makes Vegeta sound very simple and it makes the form sound less menacing. He creates his artificial moon and begins the transformation. But since a low-budget licensed game on the PS2 in 2002 was never going to be able to show the full transition between forms, here it just looks like Vegeta is smacked up to his tits. Winning this fight gets me the Kaioken x2 capsule. In the loading screen between cutscenes, Vegeta became an ape and Goku took his shirt off. He didn't do anything yet, where all the bruises come from. Rather than try fighting, Goku just goes straight for the Genki Dama. Maybe charging it right in front of Vegeta's face while he's charging a mouth blast isn't the best idea. Also, Yajirobe is here. Vegeta grabs Goku and starts crushing him. Gohan shows up to distract Vegeta. Would Vegeta call someone Sonny? Kuririn tries the Kienzan, but Vegeta knows and jumps over it. Stopping to brag, he leaves himself open for Yajirobe to cut his tail off, reverting him to normal. This gives us the final episode title for the Saiyan arc, Show Gohan's True Power. Earthbound Runtlings, you make me so angry. Vegeta's not a JRPG guy then? Vegeta tends to get screwed the most by the subtitles. He attacks Gohan, who is the player character for this fight. He has his Masenko, Kamehameha, and the physicals Kill Quick and Continuous Ki Blast Wave. A nice touch is that since everyone's worn down from the long fight, they both start with just 2 life bars instead of the usual 3. I still win first try. Meanwhile, Kuririn has what remains of Goku's Genki Dama. Vegeta jumps over it and Goku tells Gohan to bounce it back. He does, and the cutscene ends just as Vegeta turns to get hit by it. I unlock Vegeta for winning that fight. When we come back, Vegeta is blasted off into the sky. He falls back to Earth and calls his pod. The subtitles say that he's ready to fly away to his planet. Did they not know? They really love writing Vegeta like a valley girl too. That was so humiliating. Before he can climb inside, Kuririn comes up behind him with Yajirobe's katana. Kuririn screams Tao Pai Pai slogan, but Goku asks him to stop. He wants to fight Vegeta again and Kuririn does as he says, all while Vegeta brags about how next time, he will kill them. Once he leaves, Subtitle Kuririn tells Goku that next time he should just fucking vaporise Vegeta right away with his blasting power. And to make this game's presentation even better, we get a next episode preview for the Freezer arc, narrated by Goku as if this was actually an episode. It even starts with the Os Ora Goku. This preview does the first of a trend for this game's subtitles. They will also refer to the Dragon Balls as a singular Dragon Ball nearly every time. No one is looking for the Dragon Balls, they are looking for the Dragon Ball. I also like Vegeta road raging alone in his pod in empty space. And here's something you can easily miss if you do the entire story playthrough in one. Go back to the title and find you have a new title screen for the Freezer arc. Not the best looking art if I'm honest, Piccolo's comically flat face stands out most. You see, once you beat the Cell arc, the title screen permanently returns to the original Saiyan arc one. But first we have 3 more characters to talk about, Raditz, Nappa and Vegeta, starting with Raditz. This is actually Raditz's first time playable in a fighting game. No transformations or ultimates, he does have 2 death moves. Double Sunday is the beam that blew up Piccolo's arm, and Saturday Crush is the one he was going to throw at Piccolo before he picked up Goku's battle power. The rest of his physicals are all named with a similar theme. Dynamite Monday, Day Crush, Weekly Special, Exciting Year. None of this is in the original series, so it was either made up for this game, or if not here, then maybe they came from the Famicom RPGs, I don't know. His default costume is his outfit, it's the only thing he ever wears, battle jacket with the green scouter. He's always had a strong design, especially with that ridiculously long hair. Rather than a palette swap, his alternate costume is actually an original costume made up just for this game. It's a different style of battle jacket, lacking the shoulder and leg pads. No scouter either, which is always strange to me since Raditz is always seen wearing one. It doesn't look as good as his normal outfit, but it's just so cool seeing him get something new at all, let alone something made up for the game. They didn't need to go to the effort. Raditz works well for what he is and what he represents. He's only around for a short time, but he makes a massive impact. He's the one who drops the bomb that Goku is an alien. He's the cause of Goku and Piccolo's team up and Goku's death, paving the way for Piccolo's redemption later. People often say that Raditz was wasted, that he wasn't around long and the fact that he's Goku's brother wasn't explored much. I have no problem with Raditz's short tenure. He showed up, he played his role, he made his impact, and he was gone. Him being Goku's brother isn't that important in the long run, because Goku himself doesn't care. And he has no reason to care about Raditz, a brother he never knew about until he showed up when Goku was 23 for the sole purpose of recruiting him in some fight on another planet that had nothing to do with him. With the way the Saiyans have been slowly rewritten and whitewashed in recent years, Bardock in particular, leaving Raditz dead so he can't be ruined is the best thing they can do with him. Despite my praise about his short tenure, I am so sick of Raditz these days. Thanks to marketers deciding that DBZ is all that matters, every new release of the series, manga or anime, has to start with Raditz. Almost every video game after this one across the last 19 years has to start with Raditz. Even games that have plenty of content from before Raditz, like Budokai Tenkaichi 3, have to start with Raditz. The two biggest Dragon Ball games of the recent console generation, the Xenoverse games, are all about fucking time travel, and we still start with pissing Raditz. The most ambitious thing any game did with Raditz was when Attack of the Saiyans put him in the middle of the game instead of the beginning. Raditz is an awful place to start the series. I knew this even as a kid when I didn't even know there was anything before Raditz. Starting at Raditz gives you an opening where some guy you've only just met is told he's not who he thinks he is. So what? We've only just met Goku. His team with Piccolo is robbed of its gravity because the history hasn't been seen. The Kame House group's hilarious shock at Goku being a parent loses its effect. We just get told that Kuririn, Danmaten, Roshi and Chaozu have died and been revived before. As a kid, I was wondering why they were just telling me this and not showing it. Fuck every executive that forces this moment to be running to the ground, and fuck all the fans who continue to try justifying this shit because it's what I grew up with. Because of both of these groups, we now have people who've been into the series for literal decades and not expose themselves to a third of the story because of this shit. People who believe that 6 out of the 10 story arcs are unimportant backstory just because they don't have the fucking letter on the end of the title. I grew up with it too, and that thinking can fuck right off. But now it's time to talk about Nappa, making his second playable appearance in a fighting game. He has 2 death moves and no ultimate like Raditz. His first is Break Cannon, his mouth beam and also his most powerful technique according to Nappa himself. His second is the beam he killed Piccolo with, named Deluxe Bomber in this series. He's one of those large characters whose attacks can go over shorter characters like Gohan and Kuririn. His default costume is his main appearance, his battle jacket with a blue scouter over his eye. It's Nappa, it's how he looks. It is a little strange seeing him fight with the scouter since he never did in the series itself, and this battle jacket isn't my favourite style, but it works to show off how huge and threatening he looks. Like Raditz, he has an original costume for his ultimate. It's more in line with Vegeta's battle jacket, having a very dark blue spandex underneath. I quite like it and I think this game has my favourite version of it. Later Budokai games will take away the blue and make it fully black, which I don't think looks as good. And there's the unusable damage to just Speedo costume only found in story mode. Like Raditz, Nappa is a character who fulfills his role perfectly. Just this huge brute who takes everything the heroes throw at him and keeps going, reducing them from 5 to 2 before Goku arrives. Yes, 2 of those 3 deaths were suicides, but shush. The opening moments of the fight with him are pretty great too. Things already look bad because they've lost Yamcha before the fight with him has even begun. And in the first couple minutes he becomes the first character in the series whose ki is so great he shakes the earth when channeling it. But then he targets Tenshinhan, the most tough guy of the Earthlings, and punches his arm clean off in one and reduces him to screaming in agony on the floor. Then to make it worse, no one can get to him to help because he just makes the ground explode in front of them to blow them away from him. Then that's followed up by Chaozu blowing himself up on his back, which doesn't harm him at all. All that in one 14-page chapter. That's an introduction. Then he just bulldozes through everything else thrown at him after that. Never mind that Vegeta is standing right behind him, someone even Nappa is afraid of, so there's always the knowledge that even if they bring Nappa down, there's someone even worse standing right there. All this makes for one of the most satisfying beatdowns in the series when Goku finally shows up. After watching nothing work on him for weeks, it's so good seeing him stuck on the floor with a destroyed back begging for help, never expecting that Vegeta would be the one to kill him for no longer being of use to him. Nappa then made a return in GT when all the villains escaped from Hell in the Super Number 17 arc. He even gets a few seconds spotlight, blowing up a city only for Vegeta to mock him. Nappa tries to attack him but just gets sent back to Hell. It was the only way that could have gone, but it was a little underwhelming. I don't think Nappa even speaks in that scene, just grunts and screams. I just wish we could have seen his reaction to finding that the guy who betrayed him is living a cushy life on Earth with a rich wife and by this point is totally domesticated, hardly living as a sign anymore. Imagine how pissed he'd be. That should be all for Nappa, but because I know some people who actually watched this far may be making comments, I may as well bring up Dragon Ball Z Abridged. All I will say is that I really enjoyed that show. I started watching it in late 2008 when there was only 5 episodes out, and kept watching the next 10 years until it finished. I have a lot of respect and admiration for what those at Team 4 Star pulled off and the dedication to getting it done despite all the obstacles thrown in their way. That having been said, I fucking hate it when people make endless Abridged jokes on any Dragon Ball video that has nothing to do with Abridged. Ghost Nappa and Dodge were 12 fucking years ago, knock it off. I hate when people who want to get into Dragon Ball get told to just watch Abridged. That's like telling someone interested in Scream to just watch the first Scary Movie. Watching a parody is not a substitute for watching the real thing. The thing is, every person who makes that suggestion actually justifies the millions of takedowns Team 4 Star received from Toei. They're outright telling people not to engage with the actual material and just go with this free fan-made thing instead, literally trying to pass off Abridged as a replacement for the actual product. And no, Abridged is not straight up better than the actual series. Every time someone says that, when they explain why they think that, they always show that they don't actually understand Dragon Ball as much as they think they do. I said I'd avoid being a dick about the dub, but this is unavoidable. Just about every person I've seen who tries to pass off Abridged as superior has also only watched Funimation's dub. And not their more faithful Kai dub, either the 1999 heavily rewritten Hardcore Extreme dub, or their barely any better partial redub from the season sets. Every time. But that's where I'll leave it. This game came out 5.5 years before Team 4 Star was even formed, so I shouldn't spend any more time on it. Then there's Vegeta. Once again, since Vegeta was in Super Butoden, I talk about him in depth in that video. He has 2 transformations, Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan Grade 2. He has one death move, his Gallic Cannon. Like Piccolo, he has 2 ultimates. He has Big Bang Attack, requiring him to be a Super Saiyan, and he has Final Flash, which requires Grade 2. Final Flash looks really awkward in this game, just nudging the victim back a bit when they're already lying down. To be honest, Big Bang and Final Flash have always been kind of dull and generic. Big Bang is just hold one hand out and nothing else, Final Flash is the same but with 2. Even that one Final Flash-like attack that Vegeta uses against Riku is much more interesting because there's actual movement. Vegeta's best attack is the Gallic Cannon. It works as a dark mirror to the Kamehameha with the hand positions and movements, and in the anime it's a cool purple, but it only gets used once. But yeah, this is the second game to include Vegeta's Super Saiyan Grade 2, or Super Vegeta, and the first one I've covered. It definitely works in showing off a stronger Super Saiyan without going overboard on the muscles. I do like how in the end it turns out to be the wrong path to take Super Saiyan, especially when it turns out there's a further step to it that even Vegeta didn't want to use. Also, the extra height it adds to Vegeta's hair makes it even more visually distinct than his regular Super Saiyan. As for outfits, his default is that Cellak costume yet again. Of all the many Vegeta costumes in this game, they choose the overused one that happens to be my least favourite. I've already spoken about it, so let's move on. His alternate goes way beyond the Cellak, all the way to the end of the manga. This is the jacket he wore in the second to last chapter when he visits Goku for the first time in 5 years, before a shitty interquel forced its way in and contradicted that fact. This is the first game to include this outfit and only one of 2. It's also the only place where you can see him wear this outfit in Super Saiyan and Grade 2. I like it. It's always nice seeing characters in casual clothes, and it's even better seeing Vegeta not in that fucking Cellak outfit. Now for his unusable costume list, and there's a lot. In gameplay there's his Saiyan Arc battle jacket with a scouter, a sickly recolour of it, his early Frieza Arc battle jacket without a scouter, his later Frieza Arc battle jacket, and the same outfit with the gaping hole Kuririn blew through it. In cutscenes there's his utterly wrecked battle jacket. The pink Badman shirt is also sadly locked to a cutscene. So that's 7 costumes Vegeta has that I can't use. Not as much as Goku, but still a lot. Now it's time for the Frieza arc. Mr. Popo leads Bulma to God's spaceship. The subtitles say he left them like he was in his will or something. They take the ship to planet Namek and right away Kuririn sees Vegeta's pod arrive. Bulma reports everything to the Muten Roshi, who then tells Goku as Yajirobe delivers him a senzu in the hospital. He takes the spaceship Dr. Brief built him, leading to the chapter title, Let's Go to Namek. Goku uses his 6 days travelling to Namek to get some training in so he can surpass Vegeta. This chapter acts as another tutorial. First I have to deflect 15 of Vegeta's ki blasts by pressing block just before they connect. Clearing this rewards the Kaioken x5 capsule. Goku is contacted by Kaio, who warns Goku of Frieza on Namek and begs him not to go after him. Goku says he won't and gets back to his training. This time I have to activate burst mode 5 times. There's a strong attack that can be done by pressing both punch and kick at once. If both players use this move at once, they'll enter a struggle where whoever rotates the left stick most wins and gets the hit. Takes a bit longer than the last thanks to Vegeta deciding to sometimes do the wrong attack. Clearing this one gives me Kaioken times 10. Goku continues his training for the last part of the chapter. I have to use whatever health I have remaining to defeat this Vegeta. Goku's moveset now has all 3 Kaiokens and his throw. I'm left with a single health bar while Vegeta still has 3. The best thing to do is keep in mind that transformations stun even through guard when up close, and throws also ignore block. After that he's spamming the good old 4 punches to Kamehameha to finish him. Goku declares his training finished and that he can now endure any level of Kaioken. Clearing this gives me the Sensu support capsule. It takes up 3 capsule slots and fully heals you on death. Skipping ahead to later in the arc, next episode starts us off in the fight with Riku. While Goku was in space, Kuririn and Gohan got their hidden potential unleashed by the Namekian Great Elder. Frieza and his troops had collected most of the Dragon Balls and subsequently lost them, leading to Frieza calling in the Ginyu Special Force. This led to Gohan and Kuririn teaming up with Vegeta and all 3 of them getting wrecked by Riku. Lucky for them, Goku arrives before they're killed. Unluckily for Gohan, he wasn't quick enough to avoid getting his neck broken. Goku's arrival. No fucking way would an actual Frieza arc episode have just a 2-word title. No. When we fade back in, Goku has shown up to the battlefield and already healed everyone with Sensu. He takes over from there, starting with Riku, who thinks this is hilarious and charges in. I had the same skill set as the previous fight for this. In this fight I finally pulled off the Zanku Fist I've been trying to land since Raditz. This goes so well that I barely took any damage. Riku holds his stomach in agony and passes out with his exposed arse in the air. Vegeta is so not pleased in the subtitles that he actually calls him Goku. I listened to the voice track and he did not say any names in that sentence. Subtitles making stuff up again. He then reaches his Super Saiyan conclusion. Winning this fight unlocks Riku. We skip the fight with Butter and Geese returns with Captain Ginyu. Goku tells Vegeta to deal with Geese while he fights Ginyu. Valley Girl Vegeta returns. Oh my god, you knew about that! Instead, he claims one of the Dragon Balls to be his own and abandons Goku just as Ginyu goes into the attack. Once again, same moveset. Ginyu deals a lot more damage to me than Riku ever did, but I still win first time. Ginyu also speculates that Goku could be a Super Saiyan, while Goku just gives him the chance to leave the planet. Ginyu admits that Goku is stronger than him, so he claws a hole in his own chest and uses his body change ability to take Goku's body. Winning that fight gets me the Super Dragon Fist capsule. Don't you get your hopes up, it's just a name. It's the same long combo super that most characters have. When we fade back in, Goku has caught up with Ginyu to try and get his body back. While Ginyu is bragging, Vegeta sneaks up on him from behind. He tells Goku to deal with Ginyu while he goes after Geese. Then I'll kill the one who is to die. Thanks for that, subtitlers. So of course I'm playing as Ginyu for this fight. Thanks to the damage to his body, there's no death moves, just physicals. Processed Power Crush, Parmesan Shower, and his throw, Ginyu Strike. Also thanks to the damage, I have only 2 health bars while he still has the full 3. Despite body swapping voices in the cutscenes, that doesn't apply in gameplay. I just barely win this one. Vegeta flies in to finish Ginyu, but he tries to body change again, allowing Goku the chance to get his body back. I also unlock Ginyu for winning that fight. Next chapter starts with the fight over and Goku in a healing tank. While he's resting, Gohan and Kuririn use just 1 Dragon Ball to revive Piccolo and send him to Namek. However, Frieza shows up and starts a fight. We get to see him impale Kuririn in his second form, followed by crushing Gohan's head with his foot, torture Piccolo in his third, and brutalise Vegeta in his true form. Goku is fully healed and emerges from the tank stronger than ever. Goku's revival. Goku arrives at the battle, Vegeta's death is skipped for now and we get his Saiyan Rays on Earth speech. The subtitles also went with Namekans instead of Namekians. It's not wrong, both can work, but it just sounds off to me. For this fight, Goku has finally had Kaioken times 10 put into his move pool. This ends up being the toughest fight so far, but I still win first try. When we enter the next cutscene, Goku's lost his clothes off screen again while he tries the Genkidama again. Frieza just stands there watching for a bit before he gets pissed off and prepares his death ball, not noticing the bigger ball behind him before it's too late and Goku throws it down upon him. For winning that fight, I get the Genkidama capsule for Goku. As the Genkidama sinks into the ocean, Gohan and Kuririn show up to congratulate Goku on his win, only for Frieza to actually still be alive. He's not happy, he lifts Kuririn up into the air and makes him explode, fading into the chapter title, The Legendary Super Saiyan. Despite Kuririn being the one who died, subtitle Goku is making it all about himself. He transforms into a Super Saiyan and we get a recreation of that iconic first image. Goku sends Gohan away with Piccolo. Since we never see Frieza beam Piccolo here, I'm just going to assume he passed out in fear. Goku shares his feelings with Frieza. His skill set has been rearranged. All previous physicals have been swapped out for Super Saiyan, Genkidama and Super Dragon Fist. Thanks to exhaustion from the previous fight, Goku has 1 less health bar than Frieza. This also takes place on the ruined Namek stage. You can use this in versus modes by selecting it with the square button, I believe. Also by using certain ultimates on the regular Namek stage will destroy it and turn it into this one. Despite taking more damage at the start, I quickly pull ahead and win. Frieza asks who Goku is, and he delivers his "The Super Saiyan Son Goku" speech. The subtitles don't even mess it up either, so good job. This was the first time I saw the actual speech. Before then, I'd only been exposed to that "it's a good nightmare to you" bollocks. Frieza isn't happy and decides to show his true power. For this fight, I'm giving Goku Super Saiyan Capsule. No intro to a quiet but fierce battle, just put right into the title card. Frieza reaches 100% and threatens to destroy Goku like that Earthling. Goku doesn't like Frieza referring to his dead friend as simply that Earthling. Also, the unnamed, unreleased track that plays in this scene, dubbed A Hero's Desperation by fans, is pretty great, so I just hang here and let it play. I wonder what Kenji Yamamoto plagiarised this one from. Once again, Frieza has one more life bar than me, and he's a lot more aggressive than in the last fight. He knocks me out of Super Saiyan right away. So I respond by getting back into it, knocking him out of his full power, only for him to knock me out of it again before I finish it. No being cut in half, the age ratings wouldn't allow it. As Goku goes to leave, Frieza begs to be spared. Goku can't believe he dare ask it, but gives him some of his own ki anyway. Goku flies away, but Frieza, ungrateful bastard that he is, tries using that ki for one last attack to kill Goku. With this third fight won, I finally unlock Frieza. Goku sees Frieza's attack and the subtitles translated "you stupid bastard" into just "darn." He fires his own blast back and takes out Frieza for good. Right? Now all Goku has to do is escape planet Namek before it explodes. Frieza's spaceship isn't any help, Kaioken can no longer watch and looks away. Goku screams in frustration as the planet explodes around him. Oh no, he was able to come back to Earth thanks to the Dragon Ball's power. 1, no he didn't, and 2, oh no, Subtitle Bulma is an arsehole. With the Namekian Dragon Balls transported to Earth and Muri made the new Great Elder, they can summon Porunga to revive their dead friends and find that Goku is still alive out there in space. We then get our preview for the Cell arc. Subtitle Goku can't count and refers to the singular Trunks as "these guys from the future." Another new title screen for the Cell arc too. It also doesn't look very good. We've got Gohan's incredibly pointy nose, Goku's disturbing grin, and vacant Trunks. But before that, we unlocked 3 more characters during the Frieza arc: Riku, Ginyu, and Frieza himself. Starting with Riku, who'd been in a few games at this point. The reason I spell his name the way I do in the subs is to preserve Toriyama's pun on cream. For death moves, he has his Eraser Gun and 2 special fighting poses that when performed will boost his attack strength. He also has an ultimate, his Riku Ultra Fighting Miracle Bomber. His default costume is his normal look. I always did think it was a bit of a shame that the most normal looking of the Ginyu Special Force got the most screen time, and thus shows up in more games. But it's an alright look. His alternate is another original. The battle jacket is removed and he just wears a spandex underneath with the Ginyu logo on it. It's not bad. And of course, his heavily damaged look with exposed crack is exclusive to a single story mode fight. Despite what I said about his screen time, Riku does make for a memorable henchman. He's kind of a low-rent Nappa, being the huge guy who terrorises everyone while we wait for Goku to return, only he doesn't have the same impact that Nappa does. That having been said, he tops Nappa in 2 ways: expressiveness and damage shown. He has a lot of great faces when he's being beaten up, especially that final blow Goku gives him. And while Nappa just loses his shoulder pads and then the rest of his armour off screen, we first see Riku lose his armour and a lot of his spandex, and as the fight goes on he loses more hair, his face gets more progressively fucked up, and he loses his teeth. There's a reason he's been in almost the same amount of games as Ginyu himself, while the other 3 don't get as much. Next is Ginyu himself. His death move was named Milky Cannon to fit in with the dairy theme of his name. This also carries over to his physicals: Parmesan Shower, Processed Power Crush. Like Riku, he also has 2 special fighting poses. His ultimate is Body Change that makes both players swap characters, including the health they were at when the move landed. So you could let your ass get kicked and then body change, but you still have to actually land it, so it's high risk. Like Riku, his default costume is himself. It's a strong look, and I'd say design wise he's my second favourite of the Ginyu Special Force. His alternate has him wearing Goku's gi with the kanji for milk and the Nyoibo on his back. This is from the title page of chapter 288, as well as something Gohan imagines in the anime. It's a fun choice. And of course his default with the gaping chest wound and no scouter is available in 1 story mode fight. Ginyu's another fun character. His body swap with Goku lets us see some fun expressions and movements that you wouldn't see on them normally. And I love that his downfall is that simply stealing Goku's body doesn't give him the knowledge of how to use it or any of his techniques effectively. His final phase swapping with a frog is fun too. I like that scene the anime put after everyone is sent to Earth where the frog in Ginyu's body is still just hopping around the countryside. I like to believe it's still out there now, scaring the shit out of anyone who it passes by. However, the anime also added so much filler about Frog Ginyu and Bulma that it was just so tedious I blocked it from my mind. especially when they forced their way into the episodes covering Goku forming the Genkidama. That would have been it, but Super's adaptation of F added him in. I hate it. I'll ignore the fact that Frog Ginyu even being around now would require Porunga to not consider Ginyu evil, since if he lives to the Buu arc, he would have died at least when Buu destroyed Earth. Him just happening to be there in the same location for the fight with Frieza is so contrived. But also, Super decided not to kill off Tagoma right away and actually do something with him so he wouldn't be a waste. But he still wound up being a waste because Ginyu bodyjacks him before he can do anything of worth. This is one of the worst instances of Super's nostalgia pandering to me, and I feel like it was only put in to give Vegeta a 100% Ginyu Special Force kill count. It wasn't worth it. And now it's time for Frieza. Once again, Frieza was in Super Butoden, so I spoke about him in depth in that video. Frieza has two transformations, his true form and 100% power. His death move is Death Beam, and his ultimate is Death Ball, which requires him be in his true form. So yes, Frieza skips his second and third forms, 13 years before Resurrection F would have him do the same. This is despite the fact that both of those forms can be seen fully modelled in cutscenes. The reason is quite simple, no transformations in this game change height. It seems the devs didn't have the time or budget to work that out. It is also very weird that you can knock Frieza out of his true form and down into a form he has to put the effort into creating himself. That's not how it works. Another clue towards this being the case is that Frieza's first and true forms are both the same height in this game. While both forms are quite short, the true form is still quite a bit taller than his first form. Since this is the first time Frieza's first form has been playable, let's talk about it. It's not my favourite of his forms, but it does do a really good job of selling that whole more dangerous than he looks theme that Toriyama loves so much. I also like that despite having more brutish and monstrous forms, the two least threatening looking are where we begin and end with him. Another quirk I should bring up with his forms is that his true form and 100% both use the exact same model with no changes, despite how 100% should be much more muscular. They did sort of go middle ground on it though. This model does look a little more toned than his true form normally does, to me anyway. There's still one more form to talk about though. I haven't spoken about support skills much, but Frieza has a unique one all to himself. After buying and equipping Frieza's spaceship, when Frieza is killed he will be picked up, fully healed and dropped back down as Mecha Frieza. This is also the first fighting game where Mecha Frieza is playable. Seeing Frieza come back after being given a breather from him with the Gallic Jr. filler arc was already a shock. Those of us who'd never heard of the manga all thought Goku had killed him. Seeing him as a cyborg was an even bigger shock, but I will say that I quite like this look for Frieza. He is supposed to be a shell of his former self, so it can't look too much like an upgrade, but he still manages to look quite cool. I may as well bring this up now because I won't have a chance otherwise. I used to look up cheat pages for this game before I even played it, just so I could know what was in the game. I was on Super Cheats, known publisher of any old bollocks people would submit. I saw the unlockable characters, I saw Frieza's spaceship and I thought, that's really cool. And one of the things they listed was a King Cold spaceship capsule that would replace Frieza with his dad when he died instead of Mecha Frieza. I thought that was the coolest thing, hiding away such a minor character who would never be playable for another 5 years, and even then that's the only fighting game he's in. I spent hours looking for that capsule, but when I couldn't find it and tried to look it up, suddenly all mentions of it had been scrubbed and I realised I'd been conned. I was good. Frieza's default costume is kind of rare in games, and I believe only games developed by Dimps have included it. It has him without his battle jacket, from that very short amount of time after he broke it off and before he started transforming. I really appreciate when this is there. It helps break up the endless line of that specific torso piece you get when you reach the Frieza arc. His battle jacket is usable in story mode, but his alternate outside is a simple palette swap. I understand this. Frieza only wore a battle jacket in his first form, he breaks it before he transforms. So if you had both costumes with and without in the same fight and had them transform, both players would use the same model, so I get why they didn't have both available, and I appreciate the less common one being the one I have free access to. One last detail to bring up is the colour of his scouter in that costume. It's green like in a lot of manga art instead of red like it is in the anime. Now it's time for the Cell arc. A year later, Frieza's spaceship arrives on Earth with Mecha Frieza and King Cold, but the future Trunks shows up and kills both of them. Another subtitle mistake? Goku wasn't the only Saiyan. Yeah, we know, Trunks. You can clearly hear him say Super Saiyajin too. Goku returns to Earth and he tells Goku of his own death by heart disease and the artificial humans that will show up in 3 years to kill everyone. Oh wait, I'm sorry, a singular artificial human it says here. The localization team struggle with plurals it seems. Wanna know another big change the subtitle has made? In this continuity, Trunks is a son of Vegeta and the entire country of Burma. He gives Goku his vaccine and returns to the future. 3 years later, number 19 and number 20 show up. Chapter title, A New Threat. Goku and the artificial humans land in a wasteland. Number 20 tells him that they have all his battle data gathered from spy robots, so they know everything he can do. However, the spy robots didn't follow him to Namek, so they don't know about Super Saiyans. Number 20 is surprised, but he still says that both he and number 19 are capable of defeating him. For this fight, Goku's heart disease kicks in and he is constantly losing health, so I have to defeat number 19 before the virus kills him. Similar moveset to the Frieza fight, but Genkidama and Super Dragon Fist were swapped out for Zanku Fist and Dragon Throw. Thanks to the health drain, whenever I knock number 19 down, I'm just begging for him to stand up quicker, since the longer he takes, the less health I have. This one can be easily lost. Thankfully, the virus stops draining health once you reach the last half of your final life bar. It doesn't drain all the way to 0. It's extremely close. Goku's heart starts giving out and he starts losing his breath. Gohan realises it's the virus as Goku gets knocked on his ass, followed by getting number 19's ass on him and then his ki drained. But he's interrupted by a boot in his face from Vegeta. This fight gets me the viral heart disease capsule. I'll have more to say about that later. New chapter, Vegeta transforms into a Super Saiyan and kills number 19, but number 16, number 17 and number 18 were awakened and he gets put back in his place. Not just that, but Cell is also here and drinking up towns. Piccolo assimilates God so that someone can stand up to the artificial humans. Piccolo confronts Cell and takes offence to Cell calling him by his dad's name. Chapter title, A Wicked Omen. Even after they've moved to an unpopulated area, Cell still doesn't get that Piccolo isn't his dad. Well, he was his dad, but then he wasn't, but now he's mostly his dad's other half. It's weird. We actually get to play as Piccolo for this fight. He has his transformations, Explosive Demon Wave, Makanko Sapo, 2 physicals being his Instant Kill Quick and Fierce Ranma. Finally his throw, Demon Roundhouse. I always forget about this. I always misremember the first story mode run focusing only on Goku and Gohan, but no, there's also these 2 Piccolo fights in a row in the Cell arc. Cell pulls ahead early on by giving me a beating and blocking everything, but I quickly make him pay. Haven't lost once yet. Cell explains who he is to Piccolo, that he's from the future and made from the DNA of Piccolo and the Frieza, no one else. When Piccolo asks why, Cell fills him in on everything else too. I like how his subs word it as him trying to become a full and perfect being, like he just wants peace of mind and a well-rounded life. He also hates being bothered. He escapes with the Taioken, which actually retains its Japanese name in this localization. Winning this fight gets Piccolo's Fuse with God capsule. Of course it's useless without Nail Fusion capsule which has to be randomly earned elsewhere. Cell continues to evade the Dragon Team and absorb more cities, and Goku eventually recovers from his heart disease. He takes Gohan to go train in the Room of Spirit and Time. The next day, the artificial humans show up at Kame House looking for Goku, only to meet Piccolo. Chapter title, Sneaky Cell. Piccolo lures the artificial humans away to these islands hoping to kill them before Cell can find them. For this fight, the Explosive Demon Wave and Instant Kill Quick was swapped out for Gekiretsu Kodan and Makuhoidan. The loss of an easy 4-punch to death move does make it a little harder, but this fight goes much better for me than the Cell fight did. The fight is interrupted when Cell follows Piccolo's ki right to them. Clearing this fight unlocks Artificial Human number 17. We skip ahead to the next day, where Goku and Gohan are leaving the Room of Spirit and Time. Also, I feel Goku and his friends, plural, ki. I don't think I need to go into detail on how wrong that sentence is. Goku can feel the ki of Vegeta, Trunks and Cell, meaning none of them died, and has no idea what's going on. While they were in the room, referred to as the Time Soul Room in this localization, still more accurate than Hyperbolic Time Chamber, Cell became a perfect form and decided to host his own tournament. Mr. Satan makes his debut and states his intention to annihilate Cell. Kuririn and Yamcha aren't impressed in this one clip I used in my Sonic 1 video for a joke that wasn't funny. Also, Kuririn owns a volume of the Dragon Ball manga, what the fuck? 10 days later, everyone shows up for the Cell game and then the chapter title, Cell's Game Begins. Goku decides to fight Cell first. For this fight, Goku has his 4 transformations, Kamehameha, Warp Kamehameha and Dragon Throw. I managed to knock Cell down to his second form close to the end, but he stayed ahead all match and gives me my first loss with a throw. Next time I do loads better and beat Cell with a throw of my own. Cell praises Goku's performance and suggests he to Senzu to keep the fight going. Instead, Goku admits he can't win and concedes. I get the Warp Kamehameha capsule for winning that fight. When we fade back in, we get more weird phrasing as Goku refers to the tournament as the Cell's match. Then, if Cell loses, there'll be no one else who can beat you. Does Goku not realise that no one else will be fighting after Cell? The tournament will be over? Is he gonna expect like Tenshinhan to go up against Gohan after he beats Cell? Of course, no one thinks Gohan can win aside from Goku. Gohan agrees to fight and we get the chapter title, A Warrior Beyond Goku. Cell doesn't feel too threatened. As you can see, for this fight I am a different Gohan we haven't unlocked yet, I'll talk about him later. For this fight he has Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, Physical's Instant Kill Quick and High Speed Hammer, and his throw, Jackhammer. Cell starts by throwing me the microsecond the fight starts and just keeps blocking everything. I end up losing this first fight. I manage to win next time, reducing him to his first form on the final blow. Gohan tries to talk Cell out of the fight, not wanting to kill him. After explaining his anger issues, Cell takes it as a challenge. Winning this fight unlocks me... the Cell Arc version of Gohan. When we fade back in, Cell has blown number 16 to bits and kicked his head away. He also observes the Cell Juniors to torture his friends. Also, this subtitle, number 16 is defeated along with the other androids. What others? He and Cell were the only ones there. Gohan begs them to stop, but number 16's head turns up near him. In the anime, number 16's head was completely still and just his mouth moved and it looked fine. Here, his head wriggles about on the floor as he talks and it just looks off-putting. Cell freezes from that, triggering Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation. Also, whoa! This leads to the chapter title, Gohan Explodes. Gohan takes on the Cell Juniors only for one to call him a geek. Buak foreshadowing? Gohan's moveset is the same as last fight but with Super Saiyan 2 added. For this fight I have to defeat 7 Cell Juniors. They all have 1 life bar each and they are not playable and cannot be unlocked. They have a limited moveset with a Kamehameha, but they don't get to pull it off much because they die quickly. I take out all 7 life bars while only losing 1 of my own. Winning the fight rewards me with Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 capsule. Gohan approaches Cell, who's pretty irritated with Gohan's newfound confidence. Same moveset as last fight. I almost follow canon by reducing Cell to his second form when I win, but he gets in the last few hits instead. I almost lose again, but instead we activate burst mode and it gets me the win. He even goes back to his second form on defeat this time. Cell doesn't like losing. He powers up into his power stressed form and rushes Gohan only to get smacked back down. The fight gets me the Mixed Blood Power Support Capsule, a power up for the Gohans and Trunks. Cell vomits out number 18 and returns to his second form. Cell's really not happy about this and begins his self-destruct. 1 minute before he explodes and takes out the entire planet. The only thing Goku can think of is to teleport Cell to another planet. He says his goodbye to Gohan, tells him he did great and takes Cell to Kaio's planet. Cell's response?
Drat! Double drat! And triple drat!
Gohan's pretty upset, but it gets worse when Cell returns, alive and back in his perfect body. He explains the nucleus in his head and how that works. The final battle. Gohan smirks, which makes Cell take his sassy pose. Gohan's happy he'll be able to kill Cell with his own hands. For this fight, Gohan has been given his ultimate, the Super Kamehameha. To make things harder, I also have 1 less health bar than Cell. A weird quirk of this fight is that Cell's model starts off as his power stressed form without him actually being in the form himself. He usually starts the fight off by transforming into it, but I get some hits in first to make his ki drop below the threshold needed. In the final battle, we actually get the first instance of knocking a character out of the stage boundaries into a new section. Most stages can do this, but it just didn't happen until now. Not that it helps Cell, 1 ki blast takes him down. Cell responds to his loss by killing Trunks. I also unlock Cell for winning this fight. Vegeta is so angry that Cell broke his property that he comes out with the most well-known line of this entire subtitle track. Oh, you aren't Sally's. He's just shouting damn. Every time in this game someone says Chikusho and nothing else, the subtitles always added something extra or just wrote an entire sentence instead. Cell swats Vegeta away and Gohan's arm gets ruined saving him. Cell begins charging his most powerful Kamehameha and Gohan is about to just give in and let him do it before Goku contacts him from the afterlife and convinces him to keep trying. Gohan fires his one-handed Kamehameha and the beams struggle. It looks like Cell has the advantage until Vegeta blasts him from behind to distract him. This allows Gohan to overpower Cell and finish him. Gohan's ki runs out and he collapses. At God's Palace, the group uses Dragon Balls to revive everyone killed by Cell. Goku contacts them and tells them it's fine to leave him dead because of that whole dubious "I attract the baddies" speech. Everyone goes their separate ways and later most of them see Trunks off as he leaves for his own time. Goku says he'll see everyone again when they die and the story ends on him saying bye to the player. We then get the credits with screenshots of the cutscenes and a new version of Chala Head Chala playing. It's one of my favourite versions of the song. This game was the first time I ever heard it actually, and even though I didn't know it had significance to Dragon Ball at the time, it was still effective to me. I think it's just one of those songs that always evokes a sense of nostalgia even when you haven't heard it before. We're not actually done with story mode yet, but first I have those 3 new characters to talk about. Let's start with Artificial Human number 17, making only his second playable appearance. He has 2 death moves, Power Blitz and Energy Field, no ultimate and no transformations. His default outfit is what he wears through most of the series. It's fine. His alternate is kind of his GT outfit, but not exact. The coat is from GT, but if you remember, he just wore it over his original outfit. Here it's a similar outfit under the coat, but it's not exact. It's a different shirt, belt and trousers. It's an interesting choice and I'd like it more than his default. Number 17 is a character I am completely indifferent to. I have no positive or negative feelings at all towards this character. I wasn't interested in him when he first appeared, I didn't care when Cell absorbed him, and then I just forgot him until his name is brought up after Cell's death. And then I immediately forgot about him again. I fully understand why games used to just skip him and only include number 16 and number 18 instead. Super Butoden 1, Z2 Super Battle, Ultimate Battle 22 and Shin Butoden, Taiketsu, base game fighters. He just doesn't feel required when you have a limited roster. So I guess I'll move on to his role in GT, and it just leaves me confused. We have the team up of Dr. Gero and Dr. Mew, we have all the dead villains escaping hell. Of everything that could have been done with that, why is number 17 the focus? How did they build a second one in hell? Once again, why number 17 out of every possible villain? I'm sure some would find it sad that the guy basically gets possessed by a clone, assimilated into a new being, disowned by his sister, killed, forgotten, and probably left to rot in hell forever. But I still don't care about this character, so it means nothing to me. Before 2011, I thought it was the bottom of the barrel for Dragon Ball. And coincidentally, he's a big player in my newest least favourite Dragon Ball story, the Universal Survival Arc. I get that they wanted to bring back an underused character for the team, but they just picked the one that I would be indifferent to. I'd take literally any other fighter from Earth over number 17. I prefer Yamcha. I prefer Chaozu. I prefer Lanfan or Giron get digged out of obscurity. Every other possible option outside of finding a way to force Bardock or Broly into it, I would find more interesting. And once again, his big focus just has me thinking, why couldn't this be literally anyone else? Could literally anyone else be the final survivor of the tournament? Especially that whole, I'm blowing myself up, oh wait, I didn't actually die when I blew myself up, oops mess. Why do both of these returns involve someone self-destructing and then not actually dying from the self-destruction? I've said before that the only thing I like about him is the park ranger thing, because it feels like he's fulfilling number 16's dying request to protect the animals that he loved. I don't dislike number 17, but I just do not care. Next we have the Cell Arc version of Gohan. This is not the first time we've had two versions of Gohan in one game. Ultimate Battle 22 already put this Gohan and the Great Saiyaman on the same roster. But this one is the first to have both distinct child Gohans on the roster, which will become a standard in almost every Dragon Ball fighting game after this. He has his Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 transformations, his Kamehameha as a death move, and a Super Kamehameha as an ultimate. This one is so unsatisfying because we never see it hit, the opponent runs off screen before the explosion. I already spoke about his Super Saiyan form in the Super Butoden video, but this game is the first time he was playable at this age in his normal black-haired state. It makes sense. Most games prior to this didn't have in-game transformations, and he never fought outside of Super Saiyan in that arc. I've always liked that hairstyle for him. Considering the arc this is from, it makes him look a lot more like Goku without it just being exact like Goten. While this is far from the first time his Super Saiyan form has been playable, it's the first time it's been playable in a game on this show. Gohan's original Super Saiyan 2 is by far my favourite version of the form, mainly for the fact it looks the most different. It also just looks really cool. All later Super Saiyan 2s, including Gohan's own later on, all tend to look too close to their first Super Saiyan. There's a reason people still debate to this day whether Gohan or Vegeta are in Super Saiyan 1 or 2 in certain moments. Even video games have gotten away with making what if Super Saiyan 2 forms of the likes of Bardock, Gogeta, Vegito, Trunks, before I got it officially in Super, where they simply copy-pasted the Super Saiyan 1 model and stuck some sparks on it. And there's also a reason why when Toriyama came back to write Battle of Gods, he forgot what Super Saiyan 2 looked like and thought Super Saiyan 3 was it. Now the costumes. His default is his purple gi that is in every game he appears in. His alternate costume is playable for the first time. It's his casual clothes from his 10-day resting period before the Cell game. The only other game to include this costume to my knowledge is the Japan-only, now dead... Not dead. I just looked it up and it's still alive. Hasn't had any new characters in 4 years but still getting new costumes. Mostly recolours now but very few new models, but he's still seen support in 2021. It's just that no one is talking about it anymore. Keyhead exclusive Zenkai Battle Royale. Side note, it drives me mad that game was exclusive to Japanese arcades. It has so many costumes that to this day are only playable in that game. Pink Shirt Vegeta, Magi Gohan, DBZ Moving 9 Trunks and Satan, Battle of Gods Kuririn Videl and Yamcha, Human Dr. Gero, there's loads more. It's nice to see this outfit though thanks to how uncommon it is. The casual clothes of the Cell Arc were always great, and the transformation system also makes it the first time you could see Gohan wear this outfit as a Super Saiyan 2. He still has 4 more model costumes exclusive to cutscenes as well. His damaged battle jacket from the Room of Spirit and Time, his purple gi with the small Piccolo cape, the purple gi but damaged from the Cell fight, and the black morning suit which I believe has never appeared again in any other Dragon Ball game, even in cutscenes. Maybe I'm wrong though. One last thing to bring up. Teen Gohan. This is the game that started this bollocks and 19 years later we still have to deal with it. Depending on what version of Dragon Ball you're reading or watching and what dates you take into account, this Gohan is at youngest 9 and at oldest 11. Neither of those are teenagers. What this has led to in most games is that Saiyan and Frieza Arc Gohan is called Kid Gohan, Cell Arc is called Teen Gohan, and the actual teenage Buu Arc Gohan is simply called Gohan. This has permeated English-speaking Dragon Ball fandom and led to some truly stupid stuff. I've seen people suggest GT Goten for rosters, referring to him as Teen Goten. 22-year-olds are also not teenagers. I hate seeing people refer to him in-universe as Teen Gohan, as if that's his full name. You know, YouTube videos titled, Teen Gohan talks to so-and-so. In the Japanese games they're referred to as Gohan Child, Gohan Young Boy, and Gohan Adolescent. Those make sense, but I understand that Boy Gohan would sound a bit awkward in English. But the thing is, the solution is obvious. Swap your naming for the Cell and Buu arcs. Cell Arc Gohan just gets called Gohan, and Buu Arc gets called Teen Gohan. Sorted, it all makes sense and people know what numbers mean once more. Next we have basically the game's final boss, Cell. Obviously he starts in his first form and can transform through his second form, perfect body, and power stressed forms. He has a Kamehameha for a death move and his ultimate is a Genki Dama which requires him to be perfect. Not something ever used in the series itself, but the possibility is brought up. I've already given my thoughts on him as a character, along with his first and perfect forms, but these other two forms are playable for the first time in this game. I'll start with his second form. This form is infamous for getting its time cut short. While Akira Toriyama loved it, his editor Yu Kondo said he looked like a moron and pushed Toriyama to hurry up and make him perfect. And many people agree with Kondo on the look of this form. I really like it on the other hand. I love how this is the one that acts so conceited and arrogant about his appearance despite being the ugliest one. And I'd like seeing him actually revert back to this form when he vomited number 18. I think that form also lends itself best to the idea of inflating to a planet-destroying blimp. Next we have the Power Stressed form, making its only playable fighting game appearance. It was part of a Super and Hyper Dimension, it was then playable in this game. All subsequent games would swap it out for the Super Perfect body, and this form was sentenced to a decade and a half of Cardass exclusivity. The form doesn't look exact, as they can't change character heights, so it makes him look more fat in this game than anything else. Once again, I like it. He outright mocks Trunks over his use of a similar form earlier, showing he can do it too, but never uses it. But when he loses his temper, he jumps on that same bad strategy and it backfires on him. I wish it was in more games because it's more visually distinct from the Super Perfect body. Due to the wildly different designs of Cell's forms, you can't really design a new outfit for him that would look consistent across all three, so him just having a palette swap is perfectly understandable. Blue is also a common second colour for him, to make him look like an adult Cell Jr. His default perfect form does have a weird quirk though in that his face is blue in this game instead of more pale, but that might just be to fit the game's art style. When you return to story mode, you can choose the chapter you want to play. You can also see there's a load of missing episodes, and a new one for each arc. Starting with the Saiyan arc, we unlock Chapter 2, A Mutually Deadly Foe. The opening cutscene is identical to the first, but with different narration, as is the confrontation after the title card. The one difference is that after Raditz talks about Vegeta and Nappa's strength, Piccolo responds instead. His subtitles call Raditz Amini. So I have to fight Raditz as Piccolo this time. I'm given his explosive Demon Wave, Instant Kill Quick, Demon Roundhouse, and a Fierce Ranma. Raditz is a little more aggressive since this isn't the start of the game anymore, but he's still not a problem. Winning this fight awards you Piccolo's Instant Kill Quick. After Goku grabs Raditz, we get another much easier minigame. I just have to rotate the stick to build up ki for the Makanko Sapo. It's so strange that story minigames stay exclusive to the Raditz fight. Maybe they made those and couldn't think of any others, or they just didn't have the time or budget for more or something. The resulting cutscene is the same. This gets me the Makanko Sapo capsule. Piccolo takes Gohan and trains him for a year to prepare for the Saiyans. Vegeta and Nappa land on Earth a year later, and the two of them, along with Kuririn, Yamcha, Tenshinhan and Chaozu, gather to fight them. Nappa plants a Saibai-Men and one of them jumps straight for Yamcha. I think this cutscene actually makes this moment a little scarier than it was in the anime. Original Yamcha just struggles and then boom. Here Yamcha's given this moment where his face just says, "Oh shit, I'm going to die." We fade over the Yamcha death pose to the title card, Saiyan Attack. Piccolo talks to the Saiyans who are after the Dragon Balls. Nappa somehow knows Piccolo's name and threatens him with more Saibai-Men if he doesn't give them the info they want. Piccolo isn't intimidated and says he'll take them all on at once. Same moveset as the Raditz fight. Despite one of these 6 Saibai-Men already dying when it blew up on Yamcha, I'm still fighting 6. They're like the Cell Juniors, unplayable, limited movesets and have a single life bar each. Also notice that this game actually spells their name correctly as Saibai-Men. The Saibai meaning cultivation, so they are cultivated men. There's nothing cyber about them. I take them all out with little trouble. Winning the fight gives me Piccolo's Demon Roundhouse capsule. Nappa starts the fight by attacking Tenshinhan. Chaozu grabs onto Nappa's back and blows himself up to no effect. Tenshinhan fires his final Kikoho, which just damages Nappa's armour and kills Tenshinhan. Piccolo notes how Nappa is much stronger than the other Saiyans he's seen before. Plural. Unless he's talking about Goku, there was just Raditz. Nappa brags about how he can take both Piccolo and Kuririn on at once, and Piccolo angrily snaps back that he shouldn't underestimate people from Earth. The Makanko Po has been added to Piccolo's skill set for this fight. Piccolo has one less health bar than Nappa to show how outclassed he is. I don't end up in too much danger though and win. I kick him in the dick for good measure too. This really pisses Nappa off. No need to take it easy on me just because I'm nice. Gohan falls down in fear and Nappa fires his deluxe bomber at him. This fight awards me Piccolo's fierce Ranma capsule. Piccolo looks back on his year with Gohan and takes the blast. I love the way they animate his body giving out. Dimps have always been good at capturing the movement of Dragon Ball. Piccolo tells Gohan how he appreciates the time he spent with him and begs Gohan not to die before he dies himself. Then we get booted back to the chapter select with the jaunty music. Clearing all the new post-game chapters in an arc unlocks a what if episode starring that arc's villain. In this case the chapter is titled Vegeta Saiyan Prince. Vegeta narrates the opening to this one himself. Apparently, Dragon Ball, not the Dragon Balls or a singular Dragon Ball, the franchise Dragon Ball, can grant any wish. Vegeta wants to use the franchise for his eternal life. He gloats over the Earthlings' losses until he expresses shock that Nappa was defeated by Goku. Son of a gun Kakarot, you're only a little warriorette. That classic Vegeta vocabulary that we're all here for. Then we get the title card. Nappa was a good guy. Then why'd you kill him? You can't be pissed at Goku for that. Goku points out the hypocrisy but Vegeta just tells him to shut up. We then get the stances. This chapter has 3 fights and I must win all 3 in a row with no health recovery between fights or I'll have to start again. Vegeta has access to his Gallic Cannon, his Throw, Nosedive Crash, and the 2 physicals Final Bash, I like that name, and Meteor Flash. I fight very carefully and only take a couple hits before I bring Goku down. Vegeta hears Kuririn shout out his dead friend's name and turn to face him. I'll let you feel Nappa's pain, you fucking kill him! Take that, bald head. Vegeta was always the best with the insults. Same moveset. Kuririn brings me down to just over a third of my remaining health before I take him down. Now it's Gohan's turn. Vegeta offers him the chance to replace Nappa. Oh yeah, you act so pissed over his death but tried to replace him at the first opportunity. Gohan tells him where to stick it and Vegeta actually seems offended at being turned down. Still the same moveset. I don't lose too much of my remaining health by the time I beat Gohan. Clearing the chapter awards me the Gallic Cannon capsule. Yajirobe tries to sneak attack Vegeta but Vegeta notices him and impressed by his guts tries giving him Nappa's place. But Yajirobe doesn't want to end up dead like that Saiyan. Vegeta doesn't like Yajirobe referring to his dead henchman who he killed himself as simply that Saiyan and is so angry he becomes a Super Saiyan. It's the exact same wording as the scene between Goku and Frieza.
あのサイヤ人のようにナッパのことかナッパのことか
This was a fine what if, it's just that I like the other 2 this game has to offer more. We didn't unlock any new characters, so it's onto the new Frieza arc chapters, starting with chapter 2, Vegeta's attack. After leaving Earth, he returns to one of Frieza's planets to heal. When he prepares to leave for Namek, Kiwi lets him know that Frieza knows of the Dragon Balls and has gone there for them himself. Vegeta rushes off to Namek, but by the time he's there, Frieza already has 5 Dragon Balls after slaughtering their newest village. When Dodoria is about to kill Dende, Gohan kicks him aside and he and Kuririn take off with him. Skip to later where Kuririn has been given a Dragon Ball by the Great Elder. While that's going on, Vegeta grabbed Frieza's Dragon Ball and spots Kuririn flying by with another. He gives chase with Zarbon then following behind Vegeta, and while this is going on, the Ginyu Special Force are on their way. Title card. Zarbon confronts Vegeta and assumes he and Kuririn are partners. Either way, he plans to beat Vegeta until he tells Zarbon where the singular ball is. He just wants one. Zarbon transforms and attacks. I still have the same skills I did in Vegeta's What If, and knock him down to his normal state within seconds and dominate the fight. Vegeta tells Zarbon of the Saiyan's near-death power-up. Zarbon still thinks he wins and tries attacking again, only for Vegeta to impale Zarbon with a fist and blow a hole through him, killing him. The Ginyus arrive and do their intro in front of an uncomfortable Frieza. Gerd is killed off screen as next thing we see is Rikum approaching Vegeta with the most suggestive subtitle so far. He does his poses and Vegeta still has that same moveset. This fight is harder, Rikum brings me down to my last half of the life bar, but I still manage it. Vegeta throws a massive blast at Rikum, but all it damages is his clothes. He poses some more and for that fight I unlock Dodoria. The next episode starts with showing all the Ginyus being defeated or killed or turned into a frog. Then Gohan and Kuririn using 2 of their 3 wishes to revive Piccolo and bring him to Namek. But the Great Elder dies, deactivating the Dragon Balls before they can make their third wish, and then Frieza shows up. The road to Super Saiyan. Frieza begins the next cutscene by admitting he's a virgin, but then how does Kuriza fit into things? It puts his threat to tease them to death in a whole new light. Vegeta ignores all this and starts his endless, "I am a Super Saiyan, yep, totally am." Frieza tries to avoid showing his annoyance and fails. Once again, same moveset. I always remembered this fight because you can play as Vegeta in this specific battle jacket. It was the only battle jacket of his to not make it into Budokai 3, so these two fights were the only place I could use it until 2006, when Budokai Tenkaichi 2 came out. Fight's unremarkable. Frieza decides he's going to transform. I get the final Bash capsule for that fight. We get more footage of Frieza's forms winning fights and Piccolo fusing with Nail before he also shows up to fight Frieza. Not that it does him any good. Vegeta has Kuririn put a hole in his stomach so that Dende can heal him for that near-death power-up. Can't ignore Kuririn's iconic battle cry by the way. Zwoom! Chapter title, Frieza? Or Vegeta? Frieza takes on his true form and isn't threatened by Vegeta's 281st Super Saiyan claim. Still the same moveset and I win the fight. Vegeta can't even touch Frieza while Frieza mocks him. I get the Saiyan Blood Capsule for this, a power-up that goes into effect after a Sensu is used, can only be equipped by the Saiyans and Cell. Vegeta is shaken and throws his strongest blast at Frieza, who kicks it away. Vegeta completely gives up and Frieza brutalises him. Before Frieza can deliver the killing blow, Goku shows up. Annoyed at the delay, Vegeta goads Frieza by repeating his Super Saiyan spiel, annoying Frieza into beaming a hole through his chest. Vegeta gives Goku the talk about how he needs to become cold-hearted, and Frieza blew up the planet and killed all those people he doesn't care about. He ends on the kill Frieza with your Saiyan hand before he dies. Jaunty chapter select music. We've unlocked this arc's What If chapter, Raging Frieza. Frieza introduces himself and gives a very abridged recap of the arc until he actually starts fighting. He states his plan to obtain Dragon Ball, while the Ginyu Special Force fights his enemies. You think Frieza sticks with the manga or the anime? Can you also imagine Frieza saying, "Son of a goat"? Title card. Frieza once again repeats the tease you to death line, but this time he goes for Gohan. My moves are Death Beam, the Throw Meteor Crash, and the physicals Frieza Nightmare and Killer Ball. Gohan barely even tries to fight, so he only gets his first hit in when he's on his last bits of health. Easiest fight in a while. It gets me with a Death Beam capsule. Piccolo arrives to find Gohan's corpse. Kuririn, a character famous for his death at Frieza's hands, doesn't even appear. Same moveset as last time. Piccolo puts up more of a fight but still isn't much of a threat. Frieza grinds his foot on Piccolo's back, saying Vegeta is all that's left. Once again, where's Kuririn? Vegeta has the whole Kuririn blew through him, so what the hell? Vegeta goads Frieza into transforming and Frieza decides to go with it. This fight gets me the Evil Dance physical capsule for Frieza. Frieza skipped to his true form during that capsule screen and blah blah Super Saiyan. The only addition to Frieza's moveset is his transformation. Vegeta does a lot better than Piccolo and has me at my last sliver of health before I put him down. Frieza kills Vegeta the same way he does canonically and I get the final form capsule. This What If has a second chapter, The True Ruler. Goku arrives and finding everyone dead triggers his Super Saiyan transformation. It's so strange seeing that camera angle with Goku's clothes fully intact. Frieza isn't even above him here, what's he looking at? Frieza is fearful for a bit, but then powers up to full strength. 100% and Death Ball are added to his skill set for this fight. Goku kicks me about a bit, he takes half of my health by the time I've hit him only once, but for once I actually get to pull off one of his ultimates in a story battle. That easily has me catch up and finish him off. Frieza gives a victory grin, revealing he only lost a single tooth. I get his 100% capsule too. The sky turns dark and Porunga appears in the distance. He rushes over and wishes for eternal life, and Porunga actually grants it to him. We then get my favourite sight in the game. He looks so happy. Frieza destroys Namekan in his spaceship, he decides to stop by Earth and blow it up too. All while the most upbeat, victorious, the heroes have won music plays. It's very similar to the Vegeta What If, but that fucking smile at the end makes it for me. Before I move on to the new Cell Arc chapters, I did unlock 2 more characters. I'll start with Zarbon. He's making his 3rd fighting game appearance, but like Tenshinhan, 2 of those games use the same assets, so it's his 2nd time being built for a fighting game. In fact, I just realised that at the time of this game's release, Zarbon and Tenshinhan, these 2 unrelated characters, had only been playable in the same games together. That changes next game, but it was an odd coincidence. He can transform into his monster form and has one death move, Possible Cannon. I don't know where the name comes from. Other made up attack names have been based on the character's name puns, like Ginyu's Milky Cannon, but this one just sounds like gibberish. His default costume is his only look, but as I mentioned earlier, despite having the cape in cutscenes, it's not there in gameplay. It's a good look and it contrasts well with his frog-faced monster form. As for that form, this is the first game it's been playable in. It appeared as part of a super attack in its previous game, but here we can actually control it. His alternate is another original, a fancy suit. It's clearly playing off his conceited personality and it fits him very well. It's one of the most unique of the original costumes. I miss new original costumes like this instead of the over-designed crap we've been getting since Heroes. Xeno Vegito's costume is ugly and you can't convince me otherwise. And why'd you stick the Xbox 360's Red Ring of Death on Vegeta's face? Since Zarbon doesn't return for this game's sequel, it means this costume only appears in this game and nowhere else, which also means it's the only place you can see his monster form in it too. Zarbon's the most interesting of Frieza's henchmen, mainly because he gets the longest tenure. Kiwi's dealt with right away, and Dodoria doesn't last much longer. I like the part where he has this form that can win in the fight, but he doesn't want to use it because he loves his face too much to make it ugly, even temporarily. He also makes Vegeta's progression through Frieza's troops more interesting. Both Kiwi and Dodoria are no trouble for him, and it seems like Zarbon would be his first challenge, but also still a win for him. Then Zarbon pulls out the transformation and gives Vegeta his first loss on Namek, but at the same time that loss actually ends up putting Vegeta in the best position he is in during that entire arc by giving him the chance to steal Frieza's Dragon Balls. It's so good. Zarbon fulfills that henchman who's never mentioned again after his death role very well. Secondly, we unlocked Dodoria. He has the smallest move pool in the game. 3 physicals, including his throw, and a single death move, the imaginatively named Dodoria Beam. To be honest, I always felt like Dodoria was either an afterthought in this game, or I just had the least time dedicated to him. There's the aforementioned smallest move pool. His scene with Vegeta isn't included in story mode, so his death is never shown, we just unceremoniously unlock him from Vegeta's fight with Riku. Even Jisa's death was shown, and he's not even playable. And personally, I feel his model is lower quality than everyone else's. His head just looks off. His default outfit is his only appearance. It's the usual battle jacket and trousers. But the armour isn't what makes Dodoria's design, it's his spikes all over his head and arms. He also gets an original costume for his alternate. It's a new chest piece with no shoulders, finally answering that question everyone has been asking. Are Dodoria's shoulders also spiky, or are they smooth? They're smooth. It looks like the chest piece from Vegeta's outfit from the Frieza fight actually. I like it. Like Nappa and Riku, Dodoria plays the part of savage henchman well. His killing of those Namekian warriors and Muri was pretty brutal, and he gets a moment to shine in the Bardock special. But that's all you can say about him. He lets Vegeta know Frieza destroyed his planet and gets killed and forgotten. He's a character I wouldn't think about much if these video games didn't exist, because his unique visual design always adds a lot of character to any roster that he's in, even if there isn't much to him as a character. And now to finish off story mode with the new Cell Arc chapters. Chapter 2, Super Saiyan Vegeta. No prologue, begins with the title card. Vegeta has seen Number 19's moves and is disappointed that he isn't as attractive as he's been hyped up to be. Number 19 tells Vegeta he knows all of his techniques. Vegeta takes a chance to tell the power scalers to fuck off. Even in 2002, they knew. Then he becomes a Super Saiyan. He goes into his story about how he got it, and even Number 20 gets bored and just tells him to get on with it. Once again, it's the same moveset Vegeta's had all story, but with Super Saiyan added in. This is easier than Goku's fight with Number 19 since there's no virus to deal with. I also unlock Number 19 for winning this fight. Vegeta kills Number 19 with the Big Bang attack. Number 20 escapes and activates Number 18, Number 17 and Number 16. They fly away and Vegeta doesn't take it well. I was here for them, they ignored me. The meanies. He catches up to them, saying he's going to beat them silly. When Number 17 mocks his overconfidence, Vegeta is so angry he uses his good old Aunt Sally's insult. Number 18 decides to shut him up. Vegeta finally gets something new added to his skill set with Big Bang attack, which I actually pull off as my first attack in the fight. This fight goes extremely in my favour. Number 18 is unharmed and unimpressed by Vegeta. Vegeta gets pissed and goes in once more, only for Number 18 to break his arm. The cutscene fades on him writhing in pain. Number 18 is unlocked. Later in the day, Vegeta starts talking about surpassing Super Saiyan. A recovered Goku shows up and tells Vegeta of the Room of Spirit and Time. Vegeta and Trunks go in the room first. While they're in the room, Cell absorbs Number 17 and reaches his second form. Vegeta leaves the room, but it seems Trunks didn't go in this time since his hair never grew. Vegeta's confidence. Vegeta shows up in front of Cell and tells him he's going to fuck him up. Cell is very amused by this until Vegeta transforms into his Super Saiyan Grade 2. Said transformation has been added to the same moveset from the last fight. In this fight I get to show off a stage transition on the Archipelago stage. You can knock the opponent underground into this little cave. You get Vegeta's Grade 2 capsule for this fight. You have to get the Super Saiyan capsule elsewhere first though before you can use it. After this fight we get one of my favourite subtitles. Cell is so frustrated by his loss that he can only angrily scream, "Shucks," to the sky. I think whoever wrote the subtitles simply misheard Chikusho as shucks. Cell gets talking about his full and perfect form, which gets Vegeta's interest, so he lets Cell go to achieve it. Cell finds Number 18, blinds everyone with the Taioken and absorbs her. He achieves his perfect form and we get the episode title, Perfect Form Cell Complete. Vegeta doesn't think the transformation has amounted to much, so Cell responds with an "Oh yeah!" and asks Vegeta to help him warm up. For this fight, Meteor Crash has been swapped out for Final Flash. The fight stays neck and neck all the way through, but Cell wins when he grabs me and throws my last bit of life away. Next time I make him pay, I knock him down to his first form and final flash him, then just a couple punches gets the win. Vegeta starts getting tired and gives the strongest kick he can to Cell's neck. Cell doesn't react, which shakes Vegeta. Cell mocks him and that's where the scene ends. I unlock Trunks winning this fight. Back to the chapter select and we just have the final What If chapter left, aim for perfect form. Cell gives his backstory about coming from the future and all that. He's after number 17 and number 18, but he doesn't recognise this guy with the supermodel cheekbones. He then addresses the camera about becoming part of him like it's a recruitment ad. Don't point at me, Cell. Title card. Cell approaches number 17, telling him to just sit still and let it happen. But number 16 stands in the way. Cell only has 3 skills for this fight, Kamehameha and 2 physicals, Ultimate Attack and Negative Power Rain. Nothing interesting happens. With number 16 down, Cell punches number 17 in the gut and prepares to absorb him. I unlock number 16. Now in his second form, Cell approaches number 18 and the subtitles word the absorption as if he's saying they should have children together. Number 18's response is fitting for either interpretation. They're interrupted when Kuririn shows up to save number 18. For this fight, Cell gains his second form and his throw, Lasso. Once again I win. With Kuririn down, Cell tries again. He throws his tail into the absorb, but Kuririn gets up and pushes her out of the way. Whoever writes the subtitles doesn't trust me to know what means and just gives me the meaning in brackets. Winning that fight gives me Cell's second form capsule. Cell freaks out as now he started, he can't stop himself from absorbing Kuririn. This reduces him to a much smaller orange form with Kuririn's incense marks and the kanji. Furious over what Cell did to Kuririn, Yamcha swears vengeance. Noting that Cell lost a lot of power, Tenshinhan and Yamcha tower over him. Final chapter, a cold-blooded assassin. Yamcha decides to take on Cell alone, which pisses him off. 60-year-old Cell is not a child, but Yamcha in his early 30s is apparently. Cell loses his transformation and gains a new throw, machine gun attack and the physical cybernetic shooter. I love this. It's the best What If in the game. It's the first What If transformation a Dragon Ball game has created, and it's still the most creative because no one would think of this. Yeah, we got an entire game about What If fusions, but for the most part, What Ifs in recent years have just been giving mainly Bardock and Broly every single Super Saiyan form. Or it's just sticking an M on every movie villain's forehead. It's such a shame that this Cell form is exclusive to this one fight in this one chapter in this one game. It has never appeared again, not even in Dragon Ball Heroes. I mean, Yamhan got to reappear in fusions, but this is just gone. Yeah, it's just a palette swap Cell Jr., but it would at least be nice to play as it in Versus mode. Oh come on, please! Also, Cell still insists that Yamcha is a little kid. Before Cell can deal the killing blow, Tenshinhan shouts him. Winning this fight unlocks Yamcha. Tenshinhan uses his Shinki Koho to kill Cell, but it was all a dream. Cell is just regretting giving the world 10 long days to prepare for the Cell game. And with that, I fully completed story mode. To this day, this is still my favourite story mode in any Dragon Ball game. It's just the perfect length, it doesn't drag things out keeping every line of dialogue in. It manages to get most of the important bits in, presented, acted and animated very well. The only thing I'd say is missing is any of the Trunks fights, but we'll get to that later. Another aspect this game does best is the NPCs. After this, Dragon Ball games tend to have limited NPCs. You get a few important actors back for the menus, mainly non-fighters like Bulma, but that's about it. Here, so many characters show up even for a single line of dialogue and they're fully modelled and animated. No pictures with text or anything, no dialogue over limited movement. Some NPCs even get multiple models for their different outfits. No other Dragon Ball fighting game has showed this much ambition in adapting the story. So I want to give attention to that effort and list off every character who got a full 3D model in this game, some just for a few seconds of screen time. I'll start with the characters who had their actors return to record dialogue. We have Bulma in her early Saiyan arc outfit, her long messy hair and capsule shirt from the start of the Freezer arc, her clothes on Namek, her clothes from the end of the Freezer arc, her afro from the Mecha Freezer part, and her red tracksuit from when she investigates Cell's time machine. There's Chaozu, Great Ape Vegeta, Yajirobe, Kari, Kiwi, Gerd, Butter, Geese, second and third form Freezer, Shenlong and Purunga, Kaio, God, Mr. Popo, number 20, the ZTV announcer. Chi-Chi, voiced by her original actress Mayumi Sho for the first and only time since she left the show during the Freezer arc. And despite not getting models, Oolong, Puar and the Tenkaichi Budokai ringside announcer also have their voices in the game. And if we extend it to characters without voice lines, we have the Muten Roshi in 3 different outfits. Enma, Bubbles and Gregory, the doctor and nurse who looked after Goku after the Freezer fight, Muri, Dende, the Great Elder, Nail in his coat, some nameless Namekians, the doctor who healed Vegeta, Apul, King Cold and 3 of his henchmen, and Dr. Brief. It is bittersweet coming back to it almost. This game was made 19 years ago, and every single character who was voiced had their original actor. There were 33 actors in this game, and if you add together those that have sadly died since 2002 and those who were recast, whether due to retirement or Toei's cheapness when it came to Kai, just over half of these actors are no longer playing these characters anymore. That's just what happens when the show you like is nearing 4 decades old and most of the cast were veterans when they first started. I'm a Doctor Who fan, you kinda get used to losing an actor every year or two. But as I go through the games, I'm going to reach a lot of actors' final performances as their characters. In this game's case, it was the final time Mr. Popo and Kiwi were voiced by their original actors, Toku Nishio and Koji Totani respectively. Nishio retired after this game and passed away not long after Popo was recast for Budokai 3. Totani died 4 years after this game's release, ironically the same year Kiwi would finally become playable in Budokai Tenkaichi 2, he just didn't live long enough to voice him for that game. But enough depression, I unlocked 5 more characters in those new Cell Arc chapters. I'll go in the order I unlock them, starting with Artificial Human number 19, making his second fighting game appearance. He has a single death move, Photon Shot. Surprisingly, he actually has an ultimate, his Life Drain. His default outfit is his only appearance, but unlike other characters he does not get a new original costume, he just gets a palette swap. I mean, removing his hat was a possibility, and in story cutscenes he does have a model with Vegeta's boot print on his face, but based on other costumes we'll be seeing, they simply didn't want slight changes or head swaps for the alternates. An interesting thing about this game is that it's the only game where number 19 is playable, but number 20 is not. In every other game he's in, number 20 is also playable, or number 20 is the only one playable and number 19 is part of his moveset. I suppose I should bring up the barcode Famicom game, Gekito Tenkaichi Budokai, but I don't count that in the same way I don't count all the card-ass games like Bakuretsu Impact or Dragon Ball Heroes, they are card games before anything else. I've always liked number 19's design for the same reason I like number 20's, for how unexpected they are. But number 19 is even more unexpected. Of the main 5 numbered artificial humans introduced in the Cell Arc, he's in the middle. I like him more than number 17 and number 20, but not as much as number 16 or number 18. He's got some great faces and I love that laugh he comes out with. His fight with Goku is very good, seeing him start on the losing end and then slowly take over. He also gives us the surprise of Vegeta becoming a Super Saiyan, and his early death clues us in that something's just a bit off. Shame we never got to interact with Chaozu though, they could have had some good gags from that. He did make a quick return in GT when all the villains escaped from hell. How number 16 didn't have a soul to be revived with, but number 19 had enough of one to go to hell, I have no idea. But then again, Red Ribbon Army Planes also went to hell in GT. We see him on TV back to back with Pui Pui, and then that's it. Goten and Trunks fire Key Blast into an alley and number 19's head comes rolling out. It was a fun cameo. More worthwhile than the next episode dedicating so much time to the same repeated footage of those two and Oob killing Saibai men over and over. Next is Artificial Human number 18. Already spoke about her character and default outfit in Super Butoden, so check that out after this if you somehow aren't burned out by the end. She pretty much has the exact same moveset as her brother. The death moves even have the same names, Power Blitz and Energy Field. Her default outfit is her original. Her alternate is the clothes she wears when she's absorbed by Cell, that she stole from Chi-Chi. I still can't imagine what Chi-Chi would look like in these clothes. It's a good look for her, just not my favourite. It's not the first time it's been playable. She's one of those characters who did change looks between all the pre-Budokai fighting games. Pretty much just her, Vegeta and Gohan. That's about it really, she isn't in this game that much. Then we have Future Trunks. While we did have an untransformed Trunks playable once before, that was GT's present timeline Trunks, so this game is the first time Future Trunks could be played as in his regular untransformed state. He has 3 transformations, Super Saiyan Grade 2, and Super Saiyan Grade 3. Both of his graded forms are making their playable debut, and to this day, this is the only game his Grade 2 is playable. His death moves are Buster Cannon and Finish Buster. I've already said before that Finish Buster was created for Super Butoden and just stuck around in the games, but Buster Cannon is another video game created technique. He also has Burning Attack as his ultimate. Despite the difference in muscle mass, both Super Saiyan Grade 2 and Super Saiyan Grade 3 use the exact same model. There's a reason Trunks' Grade 2 never appears in anything though. It barely appears. Trunks doesn't use it in the manga, and in the anime it was only briefly seen in the one filler episode and shows no distinct special abilities. That being said, I love obscure forms and characters getting play in video games, so I love that this is even here. I'd love it if Goku's graded forms made it into a game someday too. There's also the fact that Grade 3 is so much more memorable with how huge it is. I like how even though Trunks comes across as more sensible than Vegeta, he's not quite as experienced with fighting strategy, so he makes a mistake in using such a flawed form where Vegeta wouldn't. I also think the form manages to look cool without looking ridiculous like Broly. Before Xenoverse, Dimps never really made use of Trunks. None of his story mode fights are in the game, despite having all the forms and even Mecha Frieza. He's just sectioned off as a reward for a Vegeta fight. He has barely any presence in Budokai 2, and he's the most major hero to not get his own dedicated Dragon Universe playthrough in Budokai 3. Just something I always noticed. Trunks' default costume is his iconic Capsule Corp jacket. This is my first chance getting to talk about it since it wasn't in Super Butoden. It really made Trunks stand out when he first appeared. We get arcs of characters wearing various martial arts uniforms or sets of spandex and armour, and then this guy with a jacket and dressed almost like a regular person shows up. He even somehow managed to make the bowl cut work. Speaking of the jacket, this game is the only place where you can see Trunks' graded forms in the jacket, since in the few films where he used it, the jacket would be destroyed and he'd just be left with the vest underneath. His alternate is his battle jacket with long hair, but this isn't the same hairstyle from Super Butoden. Every other Dragon Ball game has the long hair tied back, but this is the only game where the long hair is loose. What this means is that in his Super Saiyan forms, his hair is wild and all over even in the lowest form. It's my favourite Super Saiyan hairstyle for him, so it's a shame I can only use it in this game. In cutscenes there's also this costume with the whole cell put in it. Now for Artificial Human number 16. He has a single death move, Rocket Punch, and his ultimate is Hell's Flash. His default is the outfit you would expect. The main noticeable thing is those cheekbones I mentioned earlier. His alternate is a palette swap. He has a darker red mohawk and some shiny stainless steel armour. Later games will just make it grey, but this one has that shine that makes it my favourite version of this palette swap. This costume also has the Capsule Corp logo on it, like he wears at the Cell game. This is in the cutscene with the normal colour, but I get why it isn't the alternate. It's so small and most of the time you wouldn't see it. Players would get easily confused. Also in cutscenes is him after he gets a chunk of his head blown open. Not the last character to talk about, but the last one to unlock through story mode, it's Yamcha. Can you believe this is Yamcha's first playable role in a fighting game? 7 years after the manga ended? Here's some characters who've been playable before Yamcha, some of them multiple times. Mr. Satan, Zarbon, Gerd, Geese, Butter, Bojack, Zangia, Kaioshin, number 19. This is one of the series' oldest main characters, only predated by Goku, Bulma and the Muten Roshi. Yamcha has 2 death moves. He has his own Kamehameha and a unique one that works like no others. The Roga Fufu Ken is a long combo that requires the requisite string and key button, but then you have to keep pressing the key button to pull off the entire combo. His default costume is his Cell Arc look, the Kyogi with the spiky hair. This is my least favourite look for him and it's entirely the dull haircut. It's like a parasite, taking over most of GT's characters. Short hair has worked on Yamcha, but not this particular one. It's one of his most recurring video game costumes too, so I'm gonna be stuck with it a lot. His alternate is not only better, it's also only playable in this game. It's his bowl cut with white shirt and jeans from the Mecha Frieza part of the story. This is a costume that looked good in the manga, but I believe some of the anime episodes made it look a bit off, mainly due to the proportions they drew Yamcha in them. Also, the bowl cut didn't come out as well as in the manga. If the alternate was going to be the only costume I would use due to dislike of the primary, it's nice for it to be a more obscure one. I always like being able to use casual clothes in the fighting games. You can only see a character selection mostly comprised of orange geese and yellow shoulder pads so many times before you crave something new. In story cutscenes he also has his Saiyan Arc long hair and a Halo variant of that. I've always got the idea that the developers at Dimps were Yamcha fans. The fact that he's the final story mode reward and has a unique move that works like no other, plus a lot of cool stuff he'll get in Budokai 3, it makes sense. Yamcha as a meme wouldn't really explode for another decade, and these developers would have most likely grown up with Yamcha from his debut in the mid-80s. I've always liked Yamcha. I admit I always grow a soft spot for a character that is treated badly by the author, whether it be a loss of interest, neglect, or just straight up spite towards that character and pandering to an undeserved hate base. Like many Dragon Ball characters, Yamcha is at his best in his first arc. I love that he and Puar are almost like the good guy equivalents to the heroes. Yes, he's a thief, but we also don't know the conditions that led him to that life. Compare them to their equivalents on the other side. He and Bulma have similar desires, a romantic partner, but they're framed differently. Bulma just wants some hot trophy boyfriend she can basically have control over, while Yamcha's wish is for his fear of women to be removed so he can settle down and get married, because that's all he wants in life. Bulma is wishing for a prize, while Yamcha is wishing for self-improvement. Then let's look at Oolong and Puar. Puar is far and away the better person, mainly because he doesn't really do shit across the entire series, but shh. Puar helps out Yamcha with his thieving, yes, but Oolong keeps forcing a village to hand over their daughters to be his wives. He drugs Goku and Bulma so he can try to feel Bulma up while she sleeps. But also look at their relationship with each other. There is never any friction between Puar and Yamcha. They are and always have been the closest of friends and have always stayed that way. Bulma kidnapped Oolong and drugged him so she could enslave his bowels to keep him from escaping. Although Puar did seem to think that Yamcha could be a paedophile and did seem to have a problem with it, that is kinda dodgy on Puar's part. I'm just going to assume that since Puar is younger than Yamcha and closer to Chi-Chi's age, he's just naive about the whole thing. This isn't to shame these characters or whatever, it's part of the joke. The villainous rivals are better people than our heroes. And it does have a payoff where, through working together, they don't need their wishes. Yamcha gets over his fear of, well, just Bulma it seems, and Bulma does get the boyfriend she wanted with Yamcha. The 21st Budokai does start the trend of Yamcha being the victim to boost the next opponent's standing, with his loss to Jackie Chun. But it's not a problem here. It's the first time, and everybody gets one of those moments. Plus he gets that great subplot with trying and failing to prove to everyone that Jackie Chun is the Muten Roshi. He's pretty much gone from the Red Ribbon Army arc until the end for the Uranai Barber's fighters. Once again he gets used as a punching bag for an opponent that Goku then takes out right away. But I have the fandom peeve I need to bring up here. In an attempt to claim Yamcha never won a fight and to make him sound more pathetic, people refuse to count his win against Skesan. It doesn't count because it was the Muten Roshi's nosebleed covering the invisible guy that lets Yamcha win. Yes, that's how he won, but also remember that Yamcha was winning that fight by listening out for Skesan's movements and countering them appropriately. He absolutely would have won then if the Uranai Baba didn't start singing to drown out Skesan's footsteps. She cheated first, so they cheated to cancel out her cheating. That was clearly a win for Yamcha, damn it. 22nd Budokai, he gets knocked out in the first round to prop up Tenshinhan. Once again I don't mind because it's just a really entertaining fight, probably Yamcha's best, and he doesn't come out looking bad at all. He also gets to be the first character after Goku to imitate the Kamehameha. Sure, everyone else starts doing it right after, but they're all piggybacking off of Yamcha. His broken leg keeps him out of the Demon King Piccolo arc, but it's still a ballsy move to fly there and fight him yourself with a broken leg, knowing fighters stronger than you have failed. 23rd Budokai is where the rot forms. Once again he's eliminated in the first round, and in this one he's made to look pathetic, since God defeated him in the body of an unassuming middle-aged guy. But on the other hand, it does have some funny moments. Yamcha going for the jump kick only to smash his balls on the back of Shen's head is funny, and God does make it clear that Yamcha does pose a threat to him, which is why he rushes to end it. But it is a sign of things to come. The Saiyan arc is his most well-known moment, but first I'd like to praise the anime filler making Yamcha a baseball player. It's nice to see someone actually use their powers for easy money. Yeah, he's a little bored in it, but that's just because he's so above everyone else that there's no challenge. I mean, if I was the incredibly superhuman Goku or Vegeta and I had a wife getting on at me to get a job and I really didn't want one but we needed money, I'd go for something that my power would allow me to work very few days but make loads. It's just smart. Yamcha's the smartest guy of that lot. Of course, the most well-known Yamcha moment is his death by exploding Saibai-Man and his curled up corpse in a crater. I enjoy the Yamcha death pose meme to a point, but the original scene is genuinely emotional. Especially in the anime where we get to see Puar and Bulma's reactions to it. Bulma's is especially more real than the shout into the sky reaction that almost every other character death gets. That anime edition puts it up there with Piccolo's in the same arc. Of course Yamcha's out of the Frieza arc, so we move to the Cell arc. Yamcha the Cheetah and Toriyama's surrounding attempts at making him pathetic to justify it. It can fuck right off. By far the worst writing decision Toriyama made in the entire original run. All because Bulma was the only active female character and Toriyama needed someone to give birth to Vegeta's son. Make Yamcha look bad so that Bulma doesn't look like a terrible person sleeping with a man with a body count thousands of times higher than anyone who committed genocide in our own real world history. It's also so strange because despite what Trunks says happened, nothing about the way Yamcha and Bulma interact from the Cell arc onward implies he ever cheated. You'd think after how long they were together, she definitely wouldn't speak to him even vaguely respectfully if he'd betrayed her like that. I'd go into more detail, but instead I'm just going to direct you to Mr. Fusion's video, Yamcha's Cheating Heart, Dragon Ball Dissection, The Cell Arc Part 2. There's nothing I can add that wouldn't be stealing from that video. What bothers me most is that this has allowed the character to be demonised to an extent. There's the usual shipper bollocks where the Vegeta Bulma shippers also make him out to be a terrible abusive boyfriend, which is funny when you actually look at Yamcha and Bulma's relationship and see exactly who treated who like shit. It's the Doctor Who Rose Tile / Mickey thing again, except this time Yamcha's actor better not turn out to be a sex pest months after I put this video out. But that's shippers. Shipping always results in some people gaining toxic hatreds for no deserved reason. But I've also noticed a large amount of male, non-shipper Vegeta fans with an incredible hate boner for Yamcha. You know the type. The ones that try to be hyper-masculine like their idol Vegeta, and they seem really insecure that Yamcha had a decade-long relationship with Bulma before Vegeta. Maybe have some of those gaudy shirts with the hilarious tough guy slogans. A lot of people have seemed to internalise Yamcha as this icon of weakness for some reason and get really hung up on it. I assume we've all seen the Fighters videos where people rage quit and disconnect from losing to Yamcha in particular. Yamcha's just a bystander in the Buu arc, since he's retired, which is fine. The new generation are supposed to be taking over, his time in the limelight has passed. Then we get GT, where like Tenshinhan he has only 2 voiceless cameos. It's kind of depressing honestly. You never see him interact with the main group and we just see him in the desert with Poir. It looks like he just fell on hard times and drifted away from the rest of the group. But to be fair, it does add to GT's melancholy tone, the feeling that everyone is getting old, winding down and moving on. Even people who are not restricted by distance or travel options and can be wherever they want whenever they want still just end up drifting apart. Then we get to Yamcha in the Super era. He's barely in Battle of Gods and gets left out of F. This makes his first major role a filler episode about a baseball match between Universe 6 and 7. It leaned into the Yamcha is a loser meme a little, people are definitely speaking worse of him than they normally would, but that episode was very funny, so I can forgive it. The Universal Survival arc continues to be the worst. There's the running gag in the recruitment episodes of Yamcha pretending not to want to be on the team, but actually waiting for them to come to him, but of course it never happens. Thing is, there's no joke. The payoff is just Yamcha going, "Oh, I guess you didn't ask me." People will say Yamcha is too weak, but the Muten Roshi was in there, and also who gives a shit? I'd have gladly taken Yamcha over the team over forgettable number 17, wasted Tenshinhan, or overused Frieza. In fact, Yamcha should have taken number 17's role as the final winner. Have him knocked out under some rubble early on and forgotten, then have everyone else take each other out while he's unconscious. It's a way for them to play into the meme, but in a way where he still comes out a victor. Much better than, "Oh, I guess I didn't blow up when I blew myself up." Apparently the arc after this in the Super manga does treat Yamcha with respect. He manages to lose a fight without it being a joke at his expense. That's good, but it's too late. They already turned me off the Super era forever when they announced that Broly film, so I still have not and will not continue to consume Super after the Universal Survival arc. Lastly, I'd like to bring up the case of being reincarnated as Yamcha. I'd just like to say that it is objectively the best Dragon Ball story to be released since 2013. Better than Minus, F and all of Super. You can tell the lucky fan who got to write an official story was a Yamcha fan before the character assassination and before the memes, and I appreciate it. Well, with story done, there's still more to do. Next up is the tournament mode. A standard for Dragon Ball fighting games, this one actually has unlockables tied to it. At the beginning, I only have the default novice difficulty, which requires winning 3 rounds. These all take place on the Tenkaichi Budokai Arena, and between matches we get the characters announced by the Tenkaichi Budokai ringside announcer. The easiest way to win is to knock the opponent out of the arena. For this reason, it's easier to go through it as a smaller character like Gohan here, so larger attacks go over him. There's prize money for winning first place, which is halved if you lose the final round. For novice, it's 10,000 zeni. The reason I waited until now to do this is that the next level requires having at least 16 characters unlocked. Then I can win novice and go into Mr. Popo's skill shop, more on that later, and buy the adept difficulty for 4,000 zeni. Adept is 4 rounds long, and this time I go through it as Kuririn, just so I'm not going through them all as the same character. It works well for me, but I can't just coast by on his height since Gohan is my final opponent. Lucky for me, I ring him out in seconds. Coming first place in the Adept difficulty gets me 30,000 zeni. Winning it also unlocks a new character, Mr. Satan. I can now buy the Advanced difficulty for 4,000 more zeni. I can also buy a new mode, Legend of Mr. Satan, for another 4,000. I'll get to that later. The Advanced difficulty has me taking on 5 rounds in a row. I've used up the 2 shortest characters in the game, so there's only one correct choice for the hardest one. Not sure were the 4 or 5 failed attempts. Winning the Advanced difficulty gets me 50,000 zeni and unlocks the game's final character, the Great Saiyaman. I'll start with Mr. Satan. As for why I say his name this way, for one thing, that's what the actors are actually saying. For a few years I did switch over to Satan, since that's how I say the word normally. But Mr. Fusion, who I brought up before of Yamcha, convinced me through his videos to switch back by explaining the origins of the word Satan. I'm a fan of Japanese Dragon Ball. I'm used to changing how I adapt these names as more information becomes known about their origins. For example, this guy I first called Lezik, due to that being how it was said in Blue Water Studios' English dub. Then it became Legic once I saw how his name is in Japanese and trusted the various dubs got their L's and R's right when adapting names. Then once we found out it's supposed to be an anagram of credit, I've been calling him Redict ever since. Same with Saiyan. I went from saying to Saiyajin to Saiyan once I learned it was a valid English version. This is not actually the first game to give Satan a jetpack so he can fight in the air. Dragon Ball Z 2 Super Battle was the first. Instead of ki blasts, he does a flying kick that doesn't drain ki. He has a transformation, High Tension. He has a unique free hit death move, Dynamite Kick. His throw deserves a mention too because it's great. It's a take on the Cell SWAT into a mountain moment, but instead lands on their head afterwards. He has 2 ultimates. First is Present for You. Satan gets knocked down and to distract the opponent he gives him a video game to play and then blows it up. Always great to see the serious characters playing with it. Then there's Satan Special, where said game bomb drops out of his pocket and explodes, sending him headfirst into the opponent's balls. He's my favourite character to play as in this game. His default costume is his main one we all know, the brown gi. I think it's important to have him shown in the gi often to show that while he is a comical character and completely outclassed by the main fighters, he is still a serious and accomplished martial artist. His alternate costume is another original for this game, and unlike the others, while the character returned in sequels, this costume never did. It's very basic, just some red trousers, but it is an interesting costume because it does somehow make him look like a more serious fighter. Maybe he wore this in his fights at some point. I had this bit recorded 3 years ago, so I could joke about it being the only time you can ever see Satan's nipples, but on a whim I read chapter 487 a few months ago and found that I was wrong. I am so sorry for my shoddy Satan nipple knowledge. His cape also appears in cutscenes, but once again, no cape physics. It will probably interfere with the jetpack too. Mr. Satan is a great character. I admit on his introduction in the Cell arc, I disliked him because at that young age I didn't pick up that his ego and arrogance were part of the joke. I get it now, and I love his antics. The disciples in the anime are a bit too much though, none of them were funny. As a 9-year-old I was furious when he took the credit for Cell's defeat. I took it really personally, but I got over it and he's since become another favourite. Of course, the Boo arc is his greatest period. So much funny stuff. The exhibition match with Trunks, getting blackmailed by number 18, trying to kill Boo with sweets and video games. But of course, his relationship with Boo shows him as being more than a one-dimensional gag. The fact that no one else figured out that Boo was essentially a baby who needed to be taught morality, and that he was the one to get Boo to swear off killing by simply telling him it was wrong. It's a great alternative to the usual just punch till die method. Of course, things don't stay that way, but it's a major contributor to the resolution of the Boo arc. Satan's lies actually saving the world in the end is a great twist. The fact that the public don't trust Goku or Vegeta, but the guy who lies to get their trust actually puts it to good use. Plus it fulfills the gag with his name. Satan truly is the world's saviour. Satan is also one of the highlights of GT for me. In the baby arc we get him having the idea to hide in Boo's stomach to avoid baby's infection. The sight of a smiley Satan in one of those pods Boo's previous absorption victims were in is pretty great. We also get the episode where he intends to retire at the Tenkaichi Budokai because it just isn't the same with Boo gone. It is actually sad seeing how much he misses Boo. The part where the adoration from his fans move him to change his mind is pretty nice. He's around for the rest of GT, but he's pretty minor. There is that moment where Ishinlong kicks him in the balls hard enough for his eyeballs to stick out and blood come out of his mouth. That's something. As for the Super era, there isn't much to say. He's around, but he's not that important and doesn't get much focus. There's the episode where aliens challenge him to a fight, but that's about it. Next we have our final playable character, the Great Saiyaman. He has 2 unique death moves, neither of them are beams. Justice Punch can be compared to Terry from Fatal Fury's Power Dunk. Justice Kick resembles Kami from Street Fighter's Cannon Drill. His original design with the helmet is his default costume, once again no cape. It's my favourite of the 2 Saiyaman designs. It's over the top and bulky, but it still manages to be cool if you like that aesthetic. And as someone who hasn't watched Power Rangers since he was 10, 18 years ago, but still has nostalgic feelings towards some of the suit designs, I'm a fan. The only thing I didn't like was Super adding a vacuum-sealed Buzz Lightyear cowl underneath it. No. The second outfit is the bandana and sunglasses he swaps to for the Tenkaichi Budokai. But in this game they also changed his green to blue. I guess they didn't just want a head swap. This costume is nowhere near as good as the original, but I feel that's the point. Everyone in Universe dislikes this look for Gohan, except for Gohan himself who thinks it's amazing. That's the joke. So even though visually it isn't appealing to me, I like it because the joke lands for me. This is not the first game to have Great Saiyaman as a separate character alongside another Gohan. Ultimate Battle 22 got there first. Some might not like this idea, 3 of the 23 characters in this game being variants of Gohan, and the fact that this is the only character from Beyond the Cell arc. I don't have a problem with it. While we are missing a couple important characters like number 20, I feel Great Saiyaman adds a lot of character to any roster just by being there. You could always just make him a costume for the Boo arc Gohan, but Gohan carries himself differently when not in the Saiyaman suit, so you'd have to lose out on a lot of personality quirks. That and his presence here feels like a teaser. Yes, we will get to Boo. And that's all 23 characters covered. This is a very good roster, covering the bare minimum of Saiyan to Cell while still including some characters you could have easily skipped. We also have 3 characters who make their playable debut with Yamcha, Raditz and Dodoria, plus a few forms. The only omission at the time that stood out to me even back then was number 20, but I can't think of anyone I'd cut in favour of him. Speaking of cuts, we have 3 scrapped characters based on unused recorded lines from the Budokai announcer. Yep, the Saibai-Man and Cell Jr. were planned to be playable at some point and are almost finished, but didn't make it in the end. Kiwi is the more interesting one since that unused voice clip is the only evidence he was ever planned. I would have lost my shit if Kiwi had made it in back then. He's a character who only gets in games where there's already like 100 characters. Having him here in a roster of less than 30 would certainly be a memorable role for him. He'd be the most obscure playable character on the roster, which would make him the one I'd play as most. As I've said before, this game was the last time Koji Totani played Kiwi before his death, so time constraints kept us from being able to play as Kiwi with his original actor, which is a shame. Now, that would be the end of roster talk, but if you were a PAL player, you may remember a little oddity. Here's the PAL box art. We have Goku front and centre with a line of other playable characters going along the bottom. We have Frieza, Cell, Saiyaman, Raditz, Vegeta, Mr. Satan, Spopovich, Piccolo... Spopovich? What's he doing there? Saiyaman aside, the game does not go into the Buu arc, and Spopovich himself wouldn't be playable for another 5 years until Tenkaichi 3. I knew the game's entire roster before it was even released in the UK, so you can imagine my confusion finding this in the shop and seeing Spopovich placed there like it's normal. Now I'm sure a lot of us remember this one, but how many remember the lines on the back of the box? Dabra, Babidi, Majin Buu, and Destructive Prince Vegeta. It's clear to me that the publishers at Infogrames just had a folder of Dragon Ball clip art and just pasted whatever onto the box. Roster talk is over, now for some shopping. I already said I didn't record myself getting every capsule, but I can at least show a sense of completion from what I did record. Mr. Popo has 5 capsules to buy. There's a random special, physical or support for 2000 Zenny each. For 3000 I can have a random capsule from any group. Recommended is also randomised, but it tells me what capsule I'm buying and each capsule has its own price based on rarity. With the 103,000 Zenny I earned from tournaments, I buy Power Strike, number 18, Wolf Sliced Fist for Yamcha, and Zanku Fist for Kuririn. Then through the random options I get Cell Arc Gohan Super Saiyan, Energy Field for number 17, and a duplicate Gallic Cannon. I am also aiming for duplicates for a reason, but I'll get into that later and won't list them from now on. From support I get Old Training Vest for Satan, Gero's Deflection R&D, High Tech Vest for Satan, Artificial Human's Barrier for all of those except Cell, and Quality Fiber Jacket for Trunks. Back to special for Dodoria Beam, Present for You, Volleyball Fist, then I buy Super Kamehameha from Recommended. Followed by Machine Gun Fist for Tenshinhan, Super Dragon Fist, Rage with 2 exclamation points, Rolling Crush for number 19, and Finish Buster. Then the Recommended gets a bit pricey, so I leave the shop and re-enter to reset it. Back to special for Photon Shot, Trunks of Super Saiyan Grade 3, Saturday Crush. I then leave and re-enter to find the 7-star Dragon Ball in the Recommended slot. I'll talk about Dragon Balls later and just say right now that they all cost 8,000 Zenny in Recommended. I follow it up with Raditz's Dynamite Monday. Never buy the 2000 Zenny randomised physical, as every single one only costs 1,000 in Recommended. I buy Cell's Power Stressed form, Dragon Throw, number 17's Power Blitz, the Demon Clansman training uniform for Child Gohans and Piccolo, Kien Retsuzan, Deluxe Bomber, Devil Crush for number 16, Processed Power Crush, Cell's Negative Power Rain, Vegeta's Meteor Flash, Kuririn's Kamehameha, Nappa's Giant Attack, Rikum Hyper Swing, Trunks' Super Saiyan, New Style Armour for Frieza and anyone in his organisation, Moonlight for Raditz and Nappa, Nano Machine for the numbered artificial humans, and finally, General Vest for Goku, Kuririn, Yamcha and Tenshinhan. While that is a lot, you can check out the skill list and see the many holes in my collection. We'll deal with that later because next up is Legend of Mr. Satan mode. It even gets its own title screen. We start off basically getting the Tao of Mr. Satan. We then get some combat tips read out by Satan himself. We fade into the Cell game where the ZTV announcer is reporting. Goku steps into the ring, but the announcer isn't confident that any of the Dragon team can save the world. Before they can start, Mr. Satan shows up from his limo. He's not just here to take down Cell, he's going to win the tournament, which involves proving his superiority over everyone else there. We start with Yamcha. In this mode I have to win all 11 fights in a row without losing a single round. Yamcha is easy. I don't think I've ever lost to Yamcha. After winning a fight, I win some points based on my performance. They don't mean anything. We get to hear Satan challenge his next opponent, and then his inner thoughts on them, all voiced by Daisuke Gori. Next up are Tenshinhan and Kuririn, who I have to fight back to back without recovering health. By the time he gets to Kuririn, he's starting to regret it. It wasn't a problem for me though, since I was still on my first life bar. After them is number 16, who Satan accuses of cheating thanks to his hard armour. What this means for the fight is that number 16 takes less damage than the other characters, but if you stay aggressive it doesn't mean much, it just means the fight will take a little longer than the others. Following him is Trunks, who they made a unique character select icon for this mode with his longer hair. Thanks to number 16's armour, Satan has injured himself. This supposed injury doesn't really seem to mean anything in this fight, I can still use all of my moves. I love Satan's pain shouts by the way. When you don't know Japanese, it sounds like he's screaming motherfucker. I dare you to tell me that's not what it sounds like. Satan knows what the youth of today is into, so he tricks Trunks with video games and blows him up. Satan turns his attention to Vegeta next, insulting his hairstyle. He realises too late that he really needs to go to the bathroom, as revealed in his thoughts.
強がってみたものの急に腹が痛くなってきちゃった。ここは我慢だ。
I missed Daisuke Gori's voice. I have 60 seconds to defeat Vegeta before Satan fouls himself. So of course Vegeta tends to spend most of his time just blocking to slow you down and waste time. I manage it with 14 seconds left. Piccolo is next, and it seems Satan knows of and recognises his dad. For this fight I supposedly have a slower key game, but it's not that noticeable to me. After Piccolo, the Cell Juniors show up. This is the only place in the game where you can see a character select icon for them. The Saibai men don't have one. Satan gets an easier time than Gohan since he only has to defeat 5. I find this one to be the hardest fight in this mode. Satan is taller than Gohan, so his hits can go over the Cell Junior sometimes. It gets close, but I get defeated by the final Cell Junior, so I have to start again from the beginning. It gets very close next time too, but I manage to win. Satan's getting tired now, but he has to fight Goku. Another unique character select icon of Super Saiyan Goku. Not too hard. Then it's Gohan with another unique icon made for his Super Saiyan form. Satan's exhaustion prevents him from recovering between rounds, so whatever I had left from Goku is carried over to this fight. I win with less than half of my final life bar remaining. All that's left is Cell, with another new icon made for his perfect form. I really appreciate these little added efforts. They didn't need to do that, but they did. Aside from Cell starting out with max ki, there's no special conditions, just a straight brawl. As if a spotty grasshopper was ever going to defeat the champion, and I finish Cell in the most appropriate way. Earth is saved and Satan waves over the camera. It turns out this entire mode was an ad for Mr. Satan's book. My points get added up and I gain a password to enter on some website I never found back then and is almost certainly gone now. All that's left now is capsule collecting. There's only 2 ways to earn capsules, and one of them is to keep winning tournaments for the prize money. I win another 25 grand, come in second place in advanced, and from Popo I buy Cell's Life Extract for 100, Rage with 3 exclamation points, Serious with 2 exclamation points, Old Style Armour for Frieza and his henchmen, Vaccine, which will be important, Champion Belt for Satan, Serious with 1 exclamation point, and number 19 Cybernetic Pain. To make tournaments easier, I load Gohan up with the Heart Disease, Vaccine, and a couple more stat boosting supports. Heart Disease has both fighters constantly losing health, but equipping the Vaccine makes you immune, so only your opponent is losing health. This makes it so much easier if you aren't getting consistent ring outs. I win the full 50 grand next time. The reason I still buy duplicate capsules is because once you get 9 of a capsule, it will no longer be available to earn. Once a capsule is out of the pool, it makes every other one, Dragon Balls included, much easier to get. From Popo, I get Ki Flash for Goku, Cell's Life Extract for 10, Satan's Dynamite Kick, Satan Ultra Dynamite, Number 17's Buster Swing, Zarbon's Extra Graceful Cannon, Kuririn's Unlock Potential, Trunks' Super Saiyan Grade 2, Zarbon's Hyper Elegant Magnum, Saiyaman's Justice Dynamite, Improved Special Coating for the Artificial Humans, Tenshinhan's Jackhammer Fist Flash, Cell Art Gohan's Fierce Ranma, Cell's Lasso, Child Gohan's Kill Quick, the Freestar Dragon Ball, Cell Art Gohan's Instant Kill Quick and Lit Armor for Frieza's Henchmen. This is where I stopped recording everything I did, so I can't show myself obtaining every capsule. Tournaments aren't the only way to get capsules. Replaying story missions will award you a random capsule after each fight. Personally, I prefer to grind Raging Frieza, as it's free quick fights with easy opponents. In this particular playthrough, I get Frieza's Death Ball. After much buying, I get all 7 Dragon Balls, which can be used in the capsule list. You summon Shenlong, who gives you a choice between 3 random breakthrough capsules. These take up all 7 capsule slots but equip you with a character's entire moveset, all at 3 capsules each. With 23 characters, that's 23 sets of Dragon Balls together. The first breakthrough I choose is Yamcha. Another recording I did shows me getting Cell's breakthrough. At this point I got 9 of so many capsules that my very next shop visit gave me a Dragon Ball already. It is very frustrating though when you visit the shop and find yourself 1000 Zenny short for a Dragon Ball. The next Shenlong summon I recorded had me get Piccolo's breakthrough. When I've maxed out every capsule, I don't even need to buy Dragon Balls, as a single story mode win will guarantee me one. I next get Riku's breakthrough. Now to list the capsules I first obtained off screen. 1/3 Sensu, Training Vest, Sturdy Vest, Mysterious Vest, Gero's Energy R&D, Gero's Deflect Back R&D, Super Holy Water, Super God Water, Serious with 3 exclamation points, Rage with 1 exclamation point, Potential, Sign Spirit, Gero's Perpetual Energy R&D, Child Gohan's Unlock Potential, Masenko, Kamehameha, Continuous Ki Blast Wave and Hurricane Kick, Normal Demon Clansman Uniform, Demon Clansman Sturdy Uniform, Demon Clansman Mystery Uniform, Silark Gohan Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, High Speed Hammer and Jackhammer, Great Saiyaman's Justice Punch, Justice Kick, Justice Finisher, Justice Flash and Justice Carnival, Raditz Double Sunday Exciting Year Weekly Special and Day Crush, Bulma Armor, Nappa's Brick Cannon, Megaton Throw and Break Storm, Vegeta's Super Saiyan, Big Bang Attack, Final Flash, Nosedive Crash and Meteor Break, Trunks' Super Saiyan Grade 3, Buster Cannon, Burning Attack, Blast Attack, Energy Burst, Rapid Fall Slash and Meteor Break, Normal Fiber Jacket, Sturdy Fiber Jacket, Kuririn's Jackhammer and Berserk Fist, Tenshinhan's Kikoho, Dodonpa, Domination Blast and Jackhammer Fist, Yamcha's Kamehameha, Ruaga Fufuken, Wolfang Blast and Tiger Jackhammer, Satan's High Tension, Satan Special, Satan Critical Attack and Satan Miracle Bomber, Wedding Vest, World Champion Vest, Cheering, Piccolo's Fuse with Nail, Gekiretsu Koran, Makuhoidan, Instant Kill Quick, Demon Roundhouse and Fierce Ranma, Zarbon's Monster Form, Super Beautiful Arrow and Missing Screw, Scouter, Dodoria's Dodoria Ultra Spike, Dodoria Big Blaster and Dodoria Typhoon, Ginyu's Milky Cannon, Body Change, Special Fighting Pose 1, Special Fighting Pose 2, Parmesan Shower, Ginyu Strike and Ginyu Special, Rikuum's Eraser Gun, Ultra Fighting Miracle Bomber, Special Fighting Pose 3, Special Fighting Pose 4, Rikuum Buster Magnum and Rikuum Max Vulcan, Frieza's Killer Ball, Meteor Crush and Evil Dance, Frieza's Spaceship, Number 16's Rocket Punch, Hell's Flash, Killing Neck Throw and Finishing Splash, Special Coating, Improved Special Coating, Improved Nano Machine, Number 17's Power Falling Star, Number 18's Power Falling Star, Number 19's Life Drain, Power Break and Cybernetic Pain, Cell's Perfect Form, Kamehameha, Genki Dama, Ultimate Attack, Negative Power Rain and Cybernetic Radar, along with Life Extract for 1000 and Life Extract for 10,000. There's also the breakthroughs for Goku, Child Gohan, Tenshinhan, Kuririn, Raditz, Nappa, Vegeta, Ginyu, Frieza, number 17, Cell Arc Gohan, Zarbon, Dodoria, number 19, number 18, Trunks, number 16 and Mr. Satan. This ends with me getting the Great Saiyaman's breakthrough capsule, getting me every single capsule in the game at their highest amount. And I then gather a new useless set of Dragon Balls one last time, fully completing the game. Dragon Ball Z Budokai is a special game to me as a Dragon Ball fan. It was the first one I played that felt like it had some actual time and budget go into it. I cannot overstate the improvement I felt moving from Ultimate Battle 22 and Final Bout to this. But it's also the game that got me used to the idea of Dragon Ball in Japanese. It has what is still my favourite story mode in any Dragon Ball game. It pretty much kicked off the modern Dragon Ball gaming franchise. Almost every game released after 2002 owes its existence to this game. I'll be the first to say that the gameplay isn't anything special. It's quite shallow and most characters play the same. But I still find enjoyment in it. While shallow, it's still fast enough to avoid being a chore to play. It also has an amazing soundtrack, most of it plagiarised. I still love the way this game looks. It didn't need to go full on cel shading for the characters to still look how they should. Hell, I still prefer the look of this game over much later games with higher quality graphics like Raging Blast 2 or Battle of Z. I even prefer it over the look of Budokai 2. This game did its job. It revitalised Dragon Ball video games and, in Japan, the franchise as a whole. It was video games that kept Dragon Ball relevant for almost a decade before the revival, and video games is where it should have stayed. This game paved the way for every Dragon Ball game you love after it. It fulfilled its purpose and doesn't need to have aged amazingly well.